This child is only 1 year old, but he's intently staring at the stock market because in his past life he was cornered by the world's most dangerous villains and had no choice but to use a treasure. He regressed, choosing to return to the time when he was still in his mother's womb just to be safe. But who would have thought that as soon as he was born, he would immediately become humanity's first awakened? He immediately received the S-rank skill, Rage of Odin, a skill that a villain in his past life possessed, spreading nightmares across all of mankind. But the terrifying thing is, the privilege of being the first awakened is that by simply completing missions, you can receive various new skills. Upon completing the Open Your Eyes for the first time mission, he immediately received Sun Pupils, something that countless people in his past life had to shed blood just to obtain. And, okay, without further ado, let's begin. No one would remember the day they were born, right? If they did, I would be grateful for the pain I endured. Fresh blood splattered on the ground, sharp daggers embedded in my body. But the one who ordered that horrible act only looked at the dead as if they were insects. Among them were those who would surely be resurrected if given the chance. This life absolutely cannot be wasted again. The leader of those killers turned to leave. One of them came forward and reported loudly, "Sir Barbie, we can't find money anywhere." Barbie kept his hands clasped behind his back, while the man who had just reported to him suddenly began to convulse violently. Fresh blood erupted, dyeing the ground, and his vision red. Barbie said coldly, "If you can't find him, then look. If you still can't find him, just use your own life to pay for it." The scene shifts to a pile of rubble not far away. A figure leans against a wall, hidden by several large buildings. Judging by the state of his wounds, you could tell he was about to die. An arm was severed, fresh blood flowing endlessly. Normally that would be it, but not for someone experiencing a strange phenomenon. This man was tightly clutching something, like a scroll in his hand. A stream of blue light rose from it, gathering to form a panel that looked like a system window. Words appeared in sequence. "Do you confirm travel to the past? All your skills will be reset." The man resolutely squeezed the paper in his hand. The text changed again. "Please select a time. February 28th, 1985. The day I was born." Space twisted and warped. Our protagonist vaguely awoke, still surrounded by amniotic fluid, his body pressed by walls of flesh. Outside, the doctors assisting with the birth surrounded the hospital bed, monitoring every single change in the mother and child. Her water has broken now. Inside the womb, the main character was still being crushed by the walls of flesh air bubbles constantly escaping his mouth. Damn it. I knew it would hurt, but this is... Outside, the doctors and nurses were anxiously encouraging the mother. "Just a little more. You can do it." Inside, the baby suddenly became conscious, getting squeezed this painfully. "I'm going to die on the way out. My head feels like it's about to explode." He struggled inside. His mother was the first to feel it, letting out a piercing scream as if to tear the pain apart. That's Mom's voice," he told himself. "Calm down. If this keeps up, Mom will be in danger." A blinding light appeared before his eyes, followed by a system notification screen. "You have achieved the Conquer Adversity achievement. You have acquired the Overcomer of All Difficulties attribute." A doctor held him up, cut the umbilical cord, and carefully cleaned him before bringing him to his mother. Outwardly, he was crying, but his mind was glued to the new skill that had just appeared. Overcomer of All Difficulties. The moment combat ability is lost, all skills are upgraded to A rank, simultaneously grants immunity to pain while the effect is active. This was the attribute that made the first villain known as the strongest, a terrifying attribute that could easily turn the tide of battle even if consciousness was lost. The first mission in this life issued by the system was also very simple, just grow up big and strong. In other words, as long as he was a baby, he just had to eat, sleep, and wait to be fed. The progress bar would increase automatically. The mission he started right after birth. Grow Up Big and Strong Part 1 and was completed in just a short time. Vitality and Perception plus 1 point each. Additionally, he received another 3 points. Next up was Grow Up Big and Strong Phase 2. The system is really way too generous. So, Overcomer of All Difficulties wasn't the only reason the first villain became so strong. Speaking of the 8 great villains and the 8 great saints together, they formed the group of the 16 strongest S-rank awakened. The 8 great saints referred to those who were single-mindedly loyal to the system. The remaining 8 who chose to turn their backs on the system were called the 8 Great Villains. But no matter what they were called, the main goal of these people, it was simply to satisfy their own pleasures, nothing more. Of course, ordinary people rose up against them, those who used their great power to monopolize all the items and dungeons for themselves. But the outcome was no different from throwing an egg against a rock. The strongest among them, the first villain, while others were still struggling with the power that they had just awakened. He had already reached a state of perfection. But what he never expected was the birth of someone on his level. It was all thanks to his own big mouth boasting about himself since he was a fetus. There's no one else around here. Our protagonist tried to babble a few words. They sounded like nonsense, but his tiny mouth uttered the words, status window. Being a baby, his pronunciation wasn't very clear, but it was unexpectedly successful. His status window appeared. On it was written, name Nasunho, age 1. Nasunho was so happy his eyes crinkled. I did it. Tease. Calling the status window at this age, there's bound to be a reward. But the real surprise was that the first awakened achievement was given to him. Nasunho was so shocked, he almost rolled over. The first awakened for real model. It was more than I'd hoped for. The reward for being the first person to awaken is a challenge chest from the system space. A chest slowly materializes. A challenge chest. This is the highest grade chest, the very thing that helped him return to the past. A blinding light escapes from the opening chest. Nasunho starts to feel a bit of anticipation. Who would have thought he'd get to open it again? The chest disappears. What he received from that chest was a skill called Odin's Rage. In the system space, a powerful energy like a bolt of lightning flows into his hand, coursing through him with static electricity. The veins on his hand bulge. He looks at his transformed hand, feeling the power surging within it. So this is Odin's Rage. A memory from his past life returns. Some kid points at them, a mocking expression on his face. He sticks out his tongue and says a single word, bang. From the sky, countless bolts of lightning strike down, annihilating the people who almost reached him. Even the earth and rocks seem to vaporize from the lightning's power. This was the signature move of the 8 Great Evils. He still remembers it clearly, the day more than half of the guild's members were wiped out with that one simple snap of the fingers. And that person's savage, deranged laughter. Nasunho suddenly feels his heart pounding in his chest because it seems he just acquired a mythic grade skill. This is it. I've finally found a chance to turn the tables on them. I have to prepare everything perfectly before Genesis Day. In reality, the newborn baby Nasunho suddenly starts crying, waking his parents sleeping beside him. His mother quickly comes over to pick him up and soothe him. Nasunho cries helplessly. He's not doing it on purpose. It's most likely because his body can't handle the mental pressure. And so he can't stop crying. After all, it's difficult for a baby to handle such a massive amount of power and information from his future self. His mother has a kind face and gentle smile, and beside her, his father is also trying to calm him down. He stops crying as a gentle voice reaches his ears. My beloved son, my only wish is to see you grow up healthy and happy. He's not sure if it was because of her soothing words, but he starts to feel much more at ease. His body slowly calms down and his parents go back to sleep. Nasunho opens his eyes and turns his head to look at his parents. The reason he chose to return to the past was to protect everyone. I swear I won't let anyone harm my parents, even if it costs me everything. 1990, 75. After Nasunho's return to the past, in a dilapidated warehouse, a brawl is underway. A large, thuggish-looking man wields a wooden club, viciously swinging it at his opponent. His opponent is a smaller, discreetly dressed teenager. As the wooden club swings down, the teen dodges to one side, simultaneously raising his arm and landing a powerful punch to his opponent's stomach. Every single one of his movements is incredibly precise, like those of a professional martial artist. For every blow the opponent throws, he returns a painful punch right to the center of the man's face. 2 streams of blood gush from the thug's nose as he collapses, the whites of his eyes showing knocked out cold. This teenager's strength has already surpassed the standards of a normal person. The surrounding crowd erupts in cheers. Damn it! That kid from Sun Aver won again! At this rate, he's going to take over the entire Mapo district. And To think that fat guy even had a weapon. Seok mumbles, then hurries over, acting friendly as he smiles and talks to the teenager, expertly kissing up to him. So cool, the boss of Seoul is on another level. That teenager pulls his baseball cap down lower, covering more of his face, then shoves COC's hand off his shoulder. I told you I'm not interested in this stuff. If there's anyone stronger, bring them out, Seok says awkwardly. It might be a little late to say this, but you shouldn't be wasting your talent in places like this. You absolutely have what it takes to become a world-class fighter. Why do you have to get involved in these street brawls? And get yourself hurt. The teenager frowns, looking at the man coldly. I hate repeating myself, he growls. If you can't find anyone, I'll have someone else do it. Seok scratches his head, helplessly watching the mysterious teenagers retreating back. Good grief, he's absolutely terrifying. A status window appears. This mysterious teenager is none other than our very own Na Sun-ho. His stats have already increased by a fair amount. He's accumulated about 87 points, and his body is already like that of an adult. His strength and agility have also far surpassed those of professional athletes. Taking off his baseball cap, Na Sun-ho shakes his head and fixes his hair. He checks himself out in a nearby broken mirror. The wound on his cheek from the earlier brawl has also vanished. Becoming an awakener has also boosted his recovery ability, so minor wounds like this are no problem. Back in elementary school, he was only of average height, but now he's up to 1.8 meters. The stat increases during the tutorial must have had an effect during the time skip. His physical abilities are far too advanced for a 14-year-old, but ironically, he still failed at the examination area. Now that there are no more missions, he has to go raid dungeons to level up. Na Sun-ho thought of a place located on a mountain in Jeong Province, Hwasong City. There's a sealed F-rank dungeon there, but before he goes to raid it, there are many things that need to be prepared. I have to buy that mountain, and it has to be isolated from the outside world with layers of defenses built in case monsters spill out of the dungeon. Meanwhile, Na Sun-ho sat in class intently doodling in his notebook, but his mind was on the price of that mountain. Right now, it costs 1.3 million. If you factor in the defense facilities, the price is astronomical. And that's not all. There are many hidden dungeons in this world. Na Sun-ho thought with a serious expression. It looked like he was paying close attention to the lecture, but he was actually scheming to take over all those dungeons. And the first thing I need to do is get the upper hand. I already know the future, so money isn't an issue. I can have a massive fortune in the blink of an eye. But I'm still a minor, so I can't borrow too much money. I need a proxy, he thought, deep in concentration. He was so focused that he didn't even notice his teacher walk over to his desk until she waved a hand in front of his face. Na Sun-ho, you need to focus. What are you so deep in thought about? Na Sun-ho gave a slight nod. I'm sorry. After her reminder, the teacher went back to her lecture, and Na Sun-ho could only sigh in frustration. How am I supposed to have the brain power for middle school right now? His train of thought returned to the matter at hand. Right now, the only person he could trust to be his proxy is... Memories from his past life came flooding back. He was gravely wounded with 2 large spears impaled in his abdomen, and the ones who did this were his own teammates. The 2 of them pushed the spears deeper into his stomach, their eyes cloudy with a crazed look. Sorry, Captain. If you were in our shoes, you'd do the same thing. Na Sun-ho grabbed hold of the 2 spears. Sweat streamed down his face as he endured the pain, forcing out the words, Looks like you had no other choice either. A blinding light erupted, followed by agonizing screams. The 2 teammates vanished, completely swallowed by that crimson light. Even half of the spear shafts they were holding disintegrated along with them. The ground around him had caved in. The residual energy from the skill he just used slowly dissipated into the air. Na Sun-ho gasped for breath, his face pale from blood loss. Those damn dogs went completely nuts just from seeing that box. I'm exhausted as hell. He had just unleashed one final move to get away when a familiar voice suddenly spoke beside him. So that's the mark of ruin. Good thing I wasn't curious enough to get closer. It was a middle-aged man with long blonde hair like a knight of old. Na Sun-ho watched the man warily. You too, Jonathan, calm down. Jonathan gave a small smile and raised his hand. A purple energy flowed from his palm, enveloping Na Sun-ho and the 2 spears impaled in his stomach. Like some wondrous magic, the 2 spearheads were gently extracted from his abdomen. Na Sun-ho could feel everything. The moment the spearheads were out, he could feel his flesh slowly knitting itself back together. Is this the mark of healing? After he finished healing him, Jonathan let out a breath and said with a smile, "Consider us even. The old debt is paid." Jonathan leaned against the wall, clearly tired. Sun-ho remarked with a sigh, "To still have sentiment in this godforsaken world, huh, Jonathan?" Jonathan burst out laughing. After Na Sun-ho had rested and recovered a bit, they started moving again. That's when Jonathan suddenly asked, "Hey son, I heard you also worked on Wall Street. Do you remember the financial markets back in 97? It's good." Na Sun-ho answered honestly back then. "My country was deep in a financial crisis. I was just a kid, but I remember it very clearly." Jonathan forced a smile as he looked at Na Sun-ho's somber expression. My sincerest apologies. I forgot you were Korean. Sorry about that." Jonathan was originally a trader, though you wouldn't guess it from his current appearance. But he had once been famous in Hong Kong during the Asian financial crisis. The two of them found a spot to make a campfire and rest. Jonathan brought up their earlier conversation about finance again. "I was much more of a killer back in the day. They called me the Wolf of Wall Street. Being an A-rank awakened doesn't mean squat. I liked it better back when money was everything. Don't you agree?" Na Sun-ho watched Jonathan in silence. The man had earned the coveted A-rank title that everyone was dying for, and yet here he was, reminiscing about his glory days. The Jonathan of this time must be 25 years old. According to his stories, he should be working on Wall Street right now. He keeps mentioning the nickname Wolf of Wall Street because the financial firm he used to work for had the word wolf in its name. That should be enough to find him. I just have to look for a financial firm on Wall Street with wolf in its name. As expected, it wasn't hard to find. The company's homepage even had his name and photo. The Jonathan of this time. His face shows no signs of despair or hardship, but I can still recognize him easily. And below it, there's an email address. Na Sun-ho quickly drafted a short email to Jonathan. He asked for Jonathan's opinion on whether the Thai baht was currently overvalued. Jonathan will definitely reply to this email. Na Sun-ho was certain of it, because at that point in time, Jonathan had already become suspicious that hedge funds were planning to attack the Thai baht. But he still wasn't sure. If he dared to go big again with the information I'd given him, then the history books wouldn't just be filled with his own empty boasts. Boasts that he himself had woven. He was sure of it. Sure enough, it wasn't long before Jonathan immediately replied to his email. The content was that the baht would not be overvalued. Na Sun-ho, having just showered, was still drying his hair. Seeing Jonathan's reply, he left the towel on his head, sat down, and enthusiastically started typing a response. "Don't play dumb." The email read, "Sorry when I said the baht was overvalued. What I really meant was, can no one drive the price up?" Na Sun-ho smiled slyly. "Do you get it now? It's starting. If he's waiting for my response, he'll reply in no time." Sure enough, Jonathan wrote, "Can you tell me your name and the organization you work for? I knew you'd be interested." Na Sun-ho quickly drafted a reply, but the content completely ignored the question. There are many reasons for its value to increase given Asia's foreign exchange reserves and the projected rise in the value of the US dollar. It's easy to see why a hedge fund would make this decision. I believe there will be an attack on the baht's value this month. If this war truly breaks out, Thailand won't be the final target. It's just a stepping stone. Thailand is just a stepping stone. Jonathan was so shocked, he was nearly speechless. He stared blankly at the computer screen, completely in disbelief. It's true the situation on the street is a tangled mess. You can tell just by looking at my colleagues lately. Jonathan frowned. That person used the term leverage, which proves he's an insider. Who is he? Or rather, who are they? Jonathan took out a cigarette and took a long drag to calm himself, then stubbed out the barely lit tip in the ashtray. Jonathan carefully composed his thoughts to reply to the stranger. Maybe this is a test. "My office is always open. I'm ready to welcome you anytime. If you can't visit my office, here is my contact information." On the other side of the screen, Na Sun-ho had finally dried his hair and tossed the towel aside. He crossed his arms, looking at the email Jonathan sent back. "Oh, Jonathan, I knew you'd react like this." Meanwhile, on the other end, Jonathan was feeling cornered. Who on earth was this person sending him emails? The way they replied, it was as if they already had a firm grasp on everything. And we're just waiting for him to provide the answer. Nasunho smiled slyly. He knew Jonathan's judgment was excellent. He just lacked a bit of decisiveness. But he was certain Jonathan wouldn't be able to ignore what he'd brought up. Sooner or later, a war would break out in the financial markets. In April 1997, the hedge fund's attack on the baht began. In 1992, it took about 50 days. For a hedge fund to destroy the British pound, based on that precedent, Wall Street figured that Thailand falling in 50 days would be par for the course. But the Thai baht wasn't defeated so easily. They resisted fiercely, even dealing a heavy blow to the hedge funds. After 3 months, Thailand finally collapsed on July 2nd. Nasunho slumped onto a park bench. He was panting after his usual intense workout, his mind racing about the situation even as he exercised. After the attack on the baht began, Jonathan had sent him over 10 emails, all of them about the profits he was making. From betting on the collapse of the baht in May. Anyone could have predicted that. Nasunho rehydrated after his workout, but his eyes were glued to the computer screen. He sat back down and started typing another email to Jonathan. Subject disappointed. If you profit from betting on the baht's growth, contact me. Nasunho smiled. He'll be wondering about this. The reply will come soon enough. Then he sent a second email. I'll make you an offer. If you're confident enough to start your own investment firm, I plan to give you an investment proposal. In return, I want about 51% of the company. Jonathan stared at the screen, suddenly feeling dizzy. His face went pale, and he started habitually biting his nails from the stress. He wants to bet on the baht's growth, but thinking it over, he was the one who said the baht would be attacked. He never said whether the hedge funds would win or lose. If that's the case, once the attack starts, there's no way Thailand can hold out. Even a superior financial system like Britain's couldn't stop it back then. Jonathan ran his hands through his hair, looking at the report he'd just written. Damn it, the investment fund I sent this to is definitely just for supporting the VIPs. But for the baht to grow, and he's demanding I give him 51% for a proposal like that. Jonathan fell silent, then let out a wry laugh. Okay, I've just been had by a scammer. What was I even expecting? At least now I've woken up. Time to contact the other VIPs. Jonathan pulled out his phone. After the call, he fell silent, the smile gone from his face. He slammed the phone down. Jonathan quickly drafted an email to Nasunho. This is my last question. I don't quite understand your reasoning. Why have you concluded that the hedge funds will lose? Jonathan had just picked up his coffee cup when Nasunho replied instantly. Nasunho responded, No, it seems you're misunderstanding me. I'm not saying the hedge funds will lose. I'm just saying that the Thai banks have quite a few ways to protect themselves this May. Bilateral agreements, a dual exchange rate system, and the like. There are a few cards Thailand hasn't played yet. My conclusion is that the baht will see short-term growth. After reading it, Jonathan instinctively choked on his coffee. He quickly pulled out a handkerchief to wipe the coffee from his mouth. A cold sweat suddenly beaded on his forehead. What that person said was entirely possible. Wall Street is predicting the baht will collapse in May. Because they're so confident, they've used this opportunity to develop relationships with VVIPs. If the baht doesn't actually collapse in May, is there any way for me to know if the baht will grow in the current situation? Not a chance. Even if that were the case, when I brought the plan to my director, he just yelled right in my face, Jonathan, are you crazy? The baht is going to grow. Those greedy hedge funds have pooled everything they have to destroy the baht, and you think Thailand can protect itself? The director threw the stack of plans I wrote right back at me. If you're going to keep spouting nonsense like that, then pack your things and get out. I'm afraid the rumor that we have a moron like you at this company will spread. His colleagues pointed and whispered among themselves. Jonathan bit his lip. I knew this would happen. Damn it, what was I thinking? He immediately sent an email back to Nasunho. Betting that the baht will grow won't bring any profit. Unfortunately, our corporation has no intention of pursuing that kind of return. Nasunho had already anticipated this. He quickly emailed back, That's why I told you to do it independently. Jonathan looked visibly haggard. He rested his chin on his hand, staring blankly at the computer screen. Don't push your luck, you bastard. Telling me to give you 51% is no different than letting you control both my money and my future. Jonathan wrote, Who would agree to a deal like that? Nasunho smiled. Think it over carefully. My offer only lasts until the end of May. Jonathan frowned and asked, Isn't this something we should meet to discuss? As I said before, my office is always wide open. After a moment's wait. There was no reply. Jonathan got so anxious he started clicking the left mouse button repeatedly. Damn it! He stopped replying again. Damn it! Jonathan gritted his teeth and kicked the trash can in front of him to vent his frustration. In his head, the director's criticisms were playing on a loop, on and on, crushing his spirit. Jonathan, are you really going to do this? You're the only person in this company who hasn't invested in the bot's decline. What are you doing? Why are you so stunned by something so obvious? His head. He's really not right. Jonathan, the people in the office are looking down on you. If you keep this up, I'll stop supporting you. Time passed slowly. The ASEAN Central Bank used a bilateral agreement to support Thailand with $12 trillion. Once again, Wall Street fell into chaos. People were anxious and the entire company was in turmoil. But Jonathan, after a long string of stressful days, suddenly felt like he'd found a new light. He stared wide-eyed at the chaos, stunned in disbelief. Jonathan, you were right. The bot is growing. Everyone's panicking. They've lost at least $300 million. Tears welled up in Jonathan's eyes. He was astounded. He was right. He raised a trembling hand to cover his eyes, letting the tears stream down. He was right. He was right. Just then, a colleague came over. Jonathan Harry is calling for you. As soon as Jonathan approached the director, who had originally cursed him, hurriedly introduced him to the leadership. VVIPs, allow me to introduce him. He is the pride of our corporation, the monster Jonathan. Jonathan looked at the people in the room, staring intently at him. He suddenly understood. The VVIPs are furious about the bot's growth. He's introducing me as a brilliant new star to save himself from the fallout, isn't he? But if that's what he thinks... Jonathan stepped forward, placed his business card on the table, and announced, As of today, I will be leaving this corporation to establish a new investment company. Since my number won't be changing, feel free to contact me for evaluation at any time. Harry looked at him flustered, but Jonathan cheerfully cut him off. Didn't you tell me to leave before? I'm just doing what you wanted. Harry frowned. From where did you get an offer somewhere else? Jonathan smiled. I'll be getting a few soon enough. In fact, I'm known around Wall Street as the only manager who avoided this disaster. The director dropped all pretense of politeness. You arrogant bastard. You think you're special after getting lucky just one time. Jonathan adjusted his suit jacket. Who knows? Since when does Wall Street need someone who can get lucky twice? As everyone watched in stunned silence, Jonathan casually returned to his desk and happily began packing his things. His gaze fell on the computer monitor beside him. He turned it on. Before leaving, he wrote an email to Na Sun-ho. I quit. I accept your unbelievable proposal. Let's meet to discuss the details. Where do I need to go? In his room, Na Sun-ho was doing handstand push-ups. As soon as he heard the email notification, he instantly sprang to his feet. Just as I thought. Na Sun-ho quickly typed and sent an email. Come to Seoul right now. As for Na Sun-ho's personal life, it wasn't really affected. To be more precise, he didn't have much of an attachment to his studies. The kids his age all gave him strange looks. They were scared. After all, his physique was far more developed than theirs, making him look more like a student who'd been held back for about 5 years. He didn't see any problem with that, though. If no one approached him, all the better. Na Sun-ho stood in the hallway looking out the window. Since the bell had just rung, the students were rushing to their next class. The hallway suddenly became quiet and empty. It brings back memories I don't want to remember. Na Sun-ho fell silent, his quiet eyes filled with sorrow. It was the scene of a ruined city littered with corpses. But here everything is still normal. There's still time until then. His teacher happened to see Na Sun-ho. She paused, and then tears suddenly welled up in her eyes. She quickly turned away to wipe them. What is this? Why am I crying like this? Na Sun-ho saw his teacher, but didn't pay much attention. Jonathan's flight to Seoul had arrived, and Na Sun-ho had to go to the airport to pick him up personally. Na Sun-ho smiled. He said, You must be tired from your trip. Let's go somewhere else. Jonathan silently sized him up. He looked so young, but his English was perfect. Meanwhile, Na Sun-ho felt a bit awkward, because no matter how he had tried to picture it in his mind, now that he was seeing him in person, This well-dressed version of Jonathan still felt a little strange to him. The two of them went to a rather fancy restaurant. Jonathan sat down, took off his sunglasses, and looked around. So we just have to wait here. He's still enjoying his sweet moments while I'm eager to finally see him, and his letter-writing skills are anything but ordinary. Na Sun-ho smiled and said, "Not at all. I'm the one who sent those telegrams." Jonathan. The smile on Jonathan's face froze. Na Sun-ho chuckled and said, "Thank you for taking the trouble to come all this way." Huh. Jonathan's stretched all the way to Wall Street and back to Korea. You're the one who sent the letters. Oh my God. Jonathan put a hand to his forehead, jumped up, and asked, "How old are you?" 10-20. I took a huge risk coming all the way here. Do you have any idea what you've done? Na Sun-ho calmly met Jonathan's gaze. It seems I've met the real Jonathan. He asked, "Do you usually judge someone based on their age? Fine. If you really don't like this, you can just leave. But I should still give a gift to the esteemed guest who crossed an ocean to see me." Na Sun-ho took a folder of papers out of his bag. Jonathan snatched it violently. What is this? But he decided to take a look to see what this kid in front of him had written. As soon as he saw the contents, the expression on Jonathan's face became unbelievably intense. He forgot to breathe, staring intently at the data on the papers. Na Sun-ho said calmly, "Why don't you sit down?" Wasn't the Asian financial crisis already predicted the moment the U.S. government sent them unlimited dollars, saying the 21st century would belong to Asia? And with the growth of the 4 Asian tigers, all the investment funds in the world started to get involved. So, how do you find the report I gave you? Jonathan felt like he hadn't had a moment of peace since meeting this kid. According to this document, no matter the circumstances, Na Sun-ho still believed Thailand would collapse. He then asked, before reading that report, "What did you think?" It was just a question. He guessed Na Sun-ho wouldn't give a straight answer. This was the current atmosphere on Wall Street after the investment funds had stopped funding the Thai government. No one could predict the outcome of this battle, which was being called a currency war. This atmosphere continued until July 2nd, when the Thai government announced its surrender. Jonathan asked again, "So the attacking side will win? But this report is missing a crucial part." Na Sun-ho raised an eyebrow. "I don't need to answer that question, Jonathan. You're the one who has to prove whether you have the right to work with me or not." Jonathan frowned anxiously. If I don't sign the contract, does he really intend to not tell me? I'll be in big trouble if I keep judging him by his age. He sat down decisively, let out a sharp breath, and spoke to his money and reports. "Right now, I have everything. What do you have?" Na Sun-ho calmly asked back, "Isn't this just opportunity cost? What would happen if I chose to partner with someone else? Not you from March until this very moment. As I'm speaking with you, I'm wasting the money I could be earning." Jonathan brought a hand to his forehead. Damn. He predicted the fall of Wall Street, the total amount of money he could earn by betting against it. Na Sun-ho asked again, "Still haven't made a decision." Jonathan shook his head. "Sorry, I need more time to think. But still, you're truly incredible." Na Sun-ho sighed in resignation. "Fine, all right. I'll wait until June 3rd. June 3rd. Jonathan raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Wait, hold on. Why June 3rd? Na Sun-ho turned his head to look down at the report he had given Jonathan. Jonathan looked down and noticed that one of his fingers was placed on the spot with the highest growth. "This here is June 2nd, right? That's the one." Na Sun-ho smiled. "Now let's just leave everything to the algorithm to decide. Let's see how much we'll lose in the next few days," Jonathan said anxiously. "Hey, I know you can predict growth trends, but there's no way you can predict the exact date like this. Unless you're a god." He chuckled. "Well, then you've just met a real one. If they weren't outside, then for sure." Jonathan would be biting his nails out of habit from the stress. Not an approximate time frame, but the exact date and time impossible. It seemed Jonathan had nothing more to say. Na Sun-ho smiled, picked up his briefcase, and left. "Well then, until June 3rd, Jonathan. If you still haven't made a decision by then let's just consider our relationship over. If you're the Jonathan I once knew, you'll make the right decision very quickly." A few days later at his home, Na Sun-ho opened his laptop as usual and checked his incoming mail. There was one from Jonathan. The content was, "What should we name the company?" The two of them met again at the hotel restaurant where Jonathan was staying. He looked at Jonathan and asked with a smile, "Are you drowning in regret?" Jonathan's face fell and he sighed, looking completely drained. He slumped onto the table, waving the report Na Sun Ho had given him, tears streaming down his face. "Of course I regret it, but it's too late for regrets now. This report was so important. I can't believe you predicted that recession. But how did you know the exact date?" "Calculations," Na Sun Ho said with a smile. Jonathan stared at Na Sun Ho suspiciously. "Calculations, huh? Well, doubting you won't get me anywhere. Can you continue sharing your strategy?" Na Sun Ho said nonchalantly, "I can only tell you about the ingredients." "Just the ingredients? What about the recipe?" Na Sun Ho smiled and looked at Jonathan. Jonathan blushed, waiting anxiously, but he had no intention of saying anything. Jonathan sighed, defeated. He waved his hand and said, "All right, whatever. From now on, whatever you say, I'll believe it. So what's your name? I should at least know my partner's name." "Sun Ho." "Sun Ho. That's a nice name. What about Sun? What do you think if we use that for the company name? The Jonathan and Son Investment Fund." Na Sun Ho rejected it immediately. "No, take my name out of it." Jonathan didn't push it. He immediately dropped the name Sun and continued to discuss his current financial situation. "Right now, I have $400,000 in the fund. It would be great if I could attract more, but that's all I have." "Don't you have anything to contribute?" But his entire fortune was only $400,000, yet he was giving him 51% of it. Na Sun Ho's eyes widened as he looked at Jonathan. This guy's head probably isn't screwed on right. Na Sun Ho let out a breath and said, "If I had any, I wouldn't have bothered you to fly all the way to Korea." Jonathan raised an eyebrow and asked, "Hey, son, why me? How do you know me?" "So, Jonathan, you just went quiet after I told you to look at your company's homepage. Is that it? You mean you would have just called anyone?" Na Sun Ho asked, "Are you disappointed?" Jonathan shook his head and smiled. "Not really. It's just that sometimes opportunity shows up in the strangest ways. When you're desperately begging for it, it never comes. When you're desperately begging for it, it never comes." I remember hearing Jonathan say that before, word for word. At first he planned to save up points until he had enough to open a challenge chest, but halfway through, he decided to open an Overlord chest instead. That man had decided to give up on everything. He wanted to sell the items inside the Overlord chest and use the money to bury his life in a living hell. And yet what he found was a powerful skill, the kind you could only find in challenge chests. The chance of a low-tier chest containing an item from a higher-tier one is almost a miracle. And this time that miracle came to a man who had decided to give up on everything around him. Damn it! When you're desperately begging for it, it never comes. Ignoring his advice, Jonathan began his revenge. Back in the present, Jonathan, holding his coffee cup, smiled and asked him, "What are you doing staring at me like that? Are you getting emotional because I called you an opportunity?" "That's right. You are my once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But one is enough, son. Now then, show me those godlike calculations of yours." Na Sun Ho asked, "Will you follow my lead without question if I tell you to go all in?" Jonathan pressed his lips together and said, "Of course I will. I'll bet everything on you. Now sign this document. By the way, you brought your ID, right?" Na Sun Ho took out a piece of paper and handed it to Jonathan. "Right now, this is the only way to verify my identity. The 13 numbers written on here are my social security number in the U.S. Jonathan looked at the paper and blurted out, "The first 6 digits. They aren't your date of birth, are they?" Na Sun Ho grinned. "They are." Jonathan's face went pale. He didn't know what to say. After stammering for a moment, he finally dared to ask, You're only 13 years old." Na Sun Ho gave a wry smile. "Jonathan, there's no more time to be surprised about me. Now let's start discussing our business." He took out another report and placed it on the table. "The second week of June from the 8th to the 13th. I am certain the market will drop by 10% during this period." "So you think Thailand is going to crash that week?" Na Sun Ho shook his head. "No, they'll try to resist." Jonathan asked, "Then why the second week of June?" "Jonathan, have you forgotten what I told you already?" Jonathan thought to himself, so Thailand is just the beginning. When the Thai market collapses by 10%, fear will grip all of Asia. The bailout funds will be mobilized quickly, and the final destination of that flow will be... Jonathan paused. "Hong Kong." Na Sun Ho shook his head. "Wrong. It's South Korea." Jonathan was skeptical. What are you talking about? Foreign capital can't just pour into South Korea without permission. Nasunho nodded. That's right, because it would create chaos in the Korean foreign exchange market. What attacks South Korea won't be money from the bailout fund. It'll be something else, something powerful enough to cast a shadow of fear over this entire East Asian region. That fear will sweep away all the foreign capital currently flowing into South Korea. Jonathan frowned and murmured, so something huge is about to happen. So are you planning to do anything to stop it? Out of patriotism, for example, but even for a genius, a skilled sailor can't escape a tsunami. Na Sun-ho smiled and said, I know. That's why our primary target will be money. The war will be started by those who control the hedge funds, but when the dust of war settles, they'll realize who benefited most from that great battle. Jonathan, we're going to bet using 50x economic leverage. Jonathan went pale, so shocked, his soul nearly left his body. His hand holding the pen froze. It's a 10% recession, but the chart won't just drop in a straight line to minus 10% like that. It will go up 2%, down 3%, and continue to fluctuate like that. Until that moment, it will be a free fall. That's why the higher the leverage ratio, the greater the business acumen required. If your ratio is 50 times, a 1% loss will wipe out 50% of your capital. A minus 2% loss will wipe out 100%. To put it simply, you lose everything. Jonathan tossed and turned all night before sending him an email that clearly expressed his absolute horror. My entire fortune, you plan to use it on 50x leverage. Is it because you trust me, or do you just not care since it isn't your money? 50x leverage. Trading a $20 million asset portfolio with $400,000 in capital. Both profits and losses would be multiplied 50 times. It was a high-risk investment. Na Sun-ho was lifting weights while looking at his computer screen, but he knew Jonathan's trading skills were nothing to scoff at. Come October, when the hedge funds were weakened after the trauma in Hong Kong, as long as he trusted the projections, victory was certain. Na Sun-ho sent an email to Jonathan. Subject, good luck. It's all up to you. Jonathan hoped to get good news from him. This was probably the last chance for 50x leverage. Although Jonathan will never know about this. We need to strike hard and win big to be fully prepared for the next fight. Na Sun-ho crushed the energy drink can in his hand. From the 2nd to the 13th? About a week. The ball's in your court now, Jonathan. Take the shot. In his room, Jonathan sat on a chair. Beneath him was a pile of cans and crumpled up papers. He slumped over, clutching his head and pulling at his hair, looking like he had gone completely insane. Jonathan growled, All right then, you crazy kid. You'd better get ready. Witness the skills of the great Jonathan. A week later, Jonathan's flight landed in Seoul, South Korea. As he walked out of the airport, it looked as if the man had just come back from battling in a dungeon carrying the head of a massive boss, just like in my previous life. Na Sun-ho stared stunned. He shook his head. No, I'm not mistaken. Jonathan really had brought back a trophy, one more valuable than a mana stone from an S-rank monster. Jonathan returned, pulling a suitcase, his shirt half tucked into his pants. The other half hung out carelessly. He looked completely worn out. Na Sun-ho approached him and asked in a low voice, Did you convert it all to US dollars? Of course I did, Jonathan said. What's with your attitude? I'm telling you, it was 700% so it to me. Suddenly, Jonathan covered his face and began to tremble, tears streaming down. He sobbed in disbelief. It feels like a dream. I mean, 700 times, son. We multiplied $400,000 by 700 times. A week has passed, and we've earned $280 million. Jonathan felt like he'd just plunged into a deep abyss, only to find that at the bottom was a path straight to heaven. His gambler's blood was pumping. What followed would undoubtedly be an even crazier fight. That night at the hotel, Na Sun-ho called his mom to ask for permission to sleep over at a friend's place. Of course, his mother agreed instantly. She even reminded him to be careful and all that. He hung up, letting out a sigh of relief, then looked at the report Jonathan had given him. Even he found it a little hard to believe. A profit of 700%, Jonathan did better than I thought. So book smarts do have their uses. Meanwhile, Jonathan was on cloud 9. His high still hadn't worn off since he got back. He held a can of beer, his face flushed as he was starting to get drunk, shouting and dancing around while yelling, Money, oh my love. What did we just do? This is unbelievable. We achieved explosive growth in just a single attempt. Jonathan smirked. A massive hedge fund created by just 2 people. Na Sun Ho sat down, smiled calmly, and asked, "Aren't you planning on sleeping? Then let's discuss what we need to do next." Jonathan was surprised. "What, you're going to give me more shocking information?" Na Sun Ho's tone became serious as he spoke slowly. "It looks like Thailand is going to implement a floating exchange rate system. Using that day as our starting point, we're going to use our entire fund. And we're going to leverage it to the absolute maximum for an all-day bet. There won't be any bull period. A complete collapse. No one is going to rush in to buy falling stocks." Jonathan's high was instantly gone. He looked at Sun Ho worriedly and asked for clarification. But the implementation of the floating exchange rate system was officially canceled. Na Sun Ho grinned and asked, "So, what do you think about using $200 million? Jonathan was so shocked, his jaw dropped. It felt like he'd been struck by lightning. "You want to go all in with a $200 million fund. Do you think the hedge funds are just going to sit back and watch? If our $200 million bet depreciates against the Thai baht, then..." Na Sun Ho smiled and said, "That's exactly why. We need to leave them a little bait. As I said, they're the ones who will start the fight. If we pick the wrong day to make our move, we'll lose everything." Jonathan felt like he was going to lose his mind. He questioned him loudly. Using a fund that massive without any risk assessment is completely insane. Unless you're a god, it's impossible to pull something like that off. Na Sun Ho, standing on the balcony, simply smiled calmly back at Jonathan. Jonathan froze. Suddenly, he had a feeling that the person standing in front of him might actually be a god. While he was still dazed with fear, Na Sun Ho walked over, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "Starting tomorrow, there's some data we need to research. We need to check what percentage of Thailand's foreign exchange reserves we've captured with the 280 million we now possess." Jonathan raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "That's not data you can just look up easily. Besides, could you even calculate it?" Na Sun Ho opened a can of soda and took a big swig. He thought to himself, "I just have to compare it to the historical records of the July 2nd incident. Just to be safe, we can lower it. Lower the leverage ratio and change it to 1/7. Then he turns and asks Jonathan, "Why did you think I called it a $200 million bet? $80 was enough to contact the manager of the Central Bank of Thailand." Right. The more Jonathan listened, the more stunned and bewildered he felt. "Are you sure you're only 13 years old?" Na Sun Ho just chuckled. "That's why you should take a trip to Bangkok." "Oh my God," Jonathan lamented helplessly. "If I make any mistakes, I'm not sure I'll survive." Na Sun Ho said casually, "Thailand probably already knows the repeal is coming. They'll accept it and worry about the consequences later." "Oh, for heaven's sake," Jonathan sighed helplessly. Na Sun Ho laughed and said, 1997 will be our golden age." He stood leaning against the balcony. The night wind blew through his soft black hair, and the moonlight cast a faint glow on him. "Jonathan, you have to give it your all." The next day, Jonathan looked extremely worried, but his eyes were like those of an awakened one entering a dungeon. While Jonathan was gathering information in enemy territory, I was preparing to embark on a different path. He put on his baseball cap and his usual outfit. As always, another fight was about to begin. This time his opponent's arm, the one holding the dagger, was broken by one of his blows. The guy's face twisted in pain as veins bulged on his forehead. COK rushed in and pulled Na Sun Ho back. "Stop it!" Do Hyun writhed on the ground, clutching his broken arm and groaning. You son of a bitch, I'll kill you!" Na Sun Ho said coldly. "If you were afraid of getting payback, then you shouldn't have pulled out a knife." "Am I wrong?" COK behind him said worriedly. "Hey buddy, I told you we should just leave. That guy is a notorious thug. There are even rumors that he's connected to some real gangsters." Do Hyun gritted his teeth and cursed. "So you know who I am, huh, you bastard? Don't think I'm just gonna let this go." Na Sun Ho smirked. "Oh, really good. What?" Do Hyun stared wide-eyed at Na Sun Ho. That night at a dilapidated old warehouse, Do Hyun's gang, answering his call to deliver a beating, had arrived. They surrounded Na Sun Ho. One of them, holding a club, stepped forward, raising an eyebrow at him. "What's with this son of a bitch? Does he want to die?" Do Hyun didn't get it either. This guy wants to pick a fight. Instead of running, what the hell? In reality, Na Sun Ho did this. Oistis. Because it was hard to raise his stats through normal training. So now was the time to put it to the test. The thugs didn't waste any more time shouting, "Get him!" as they rushed forward swinging their bats wildly. Na Sun Ho glanced at the guy closest to him. Planting his left foot as a pivot, he threw a kick right into the man's face. But from behind him, several others rushed in carrying bats. Na Sun Ho turned and landed a hard punch to a guy's face. As one fell, another took his place. These guys were persistent as leeches, but their individual strength wasn't very high. Na Sun Ho leaped up using the momentum to drive his knee hard into his opponent's face. Suddenly, he heard the sound of something whistling past his ear. A large guy charged at him, swinging a bat horizontally. Na Sun Ho instantly ducked and aimed for his opponent's face again, and counterattacked, thrusting his 5 fingers hard into the man's face. However, these thugs were as persistent as hungry leeches. As soon as Na Sun Ho took one down, another one rushed forward and smashed a brick hard on his head. The guy threw the brick away. Damn it, this guy is a real pain in the ass. Maybe the biggest mistake of his life was hitting someone with a brick, but he only managed one hit. Just as he thought that a hand grabbed his collar from below, and all he could see was the sky arcing above him. Then his body slammed onto the ground, his insides churning from Na Sun Ho's throw. In his eyes, these thugs were full of openings weaknesses that revealed themselves during the fight. It felt as if the system was urging me to use my abilities. But if I use Odin's Wrath here, it'd just be a joke. So he simply used his fists and feet, weaving through them and knocking out a few more guys. The gang leader sitting on his motorcycle frowned and grumbled, "You idiots, what are you doing, filming a movie? There's no need to make it so complicated." He revved the motorcycle's engine and charged straight. Na Sun Ho, slamming into him hard. "I don't give a damn if you die. As long as you can't fight, that's good enough." Na Sun Ho never expected them to pull a move like that. His body was sent flying before crashing onto the ground. For a moment, he couldn't find a way to get back up. His entire body ached. The leader casually lit a cigarette, looking at his worthless lackeys, who were just standing there frozen. He ordered coldly, "What are you all still standing there for? Crush him." Hearing that the thugs snapped out of their stupor, some beat him with bats while others kicked him viciously. Na Sun Ho curled up on the ground, protecting his head to avoid being kicked in any vital spots. Just then Do Hyun, whose arm Na Sun Ho had broken, pushed his way to the front and said aggressively, "Move aside. Let me land the final blow, you son of a bitch. Where's that arrogant attitude now?" Na Sun Ho clutched his head as blood dripped down, blurring his vision. He gritted his teeth and swore, "Damn it. Is it still not enough?" He trembled as he struggled to get up, which nearly scared the thugs to death. But they were now convinced he had no fight left in him, so Do Hyun summoned all his courage and anger. He charged forward to land one last hit. "You bastard! Let's see you take this." He drew back his leg and landed a powerful kick right in the middle of Na Sun Ho's stomach. Na Sun Ho felt like he could barely breathe, his organs crushed as his consciousness started to fade. It was at that very moment his eyes suddenly changed, as if a strange power had just awakened within his body. Skill Overcomer has been activated. For the first time in this life, Overcomer of Adversity has been activated. Stamina rank has increased from F to E. Do Hyun's face paled as he stared at the unbelievable sight before him. What the hell is this? The guy they had beaten to a pulp suddenly got up as if stimulated by something. An energy they couldn't see with the naked eye was flowing around his body. It was flowing into Na Sun Ho, unlocking his potential. Intuition rank Wrath of Odin has been upgraded to E. Do Hyun had a growing sense of dread. He pulled out his dagger, brandishing it defensively. "Don't come near me." Child's play. With everything boosted to E, these thugs are nothing to me. Na Sun Ho lunged forward at a speed invisible to the naked eye, landing a devastating punch on Do Hyun. Then he turned towards the thugs who had just been beating him relentlessly. But now they didn't dare to attack him. Of course they'd be wary of someone who'd suddenly become so strange. Thanks to the activation of the Overcomer of Adversity skill, his injuries had also partially healed. So this is the Overcomer of Adversity skill. For my stats to suddenly increase like this, It's making it hard to get used to my current body. The pain was no longer a concern for him. Na Sun-ho looked at the thugs. The thugs looked at him, then glanced back at their boss. The boss glared at them, his eyes saying, "Get him! Don't make me say it again." So they could only grit their teeth, grab their bats, and attack Na Sun-ho once more. But attacking him at a time like this. Wasn't that just asking for death? A glint of red flashed in his eyes. He turned and casually threw a punch. The first thug was knocked out cold, unable to get back up this time. One of his buddies, who was charging forward with a bat, froze when he saw what happened to the guy before him. But before he could even run, Na Sun-ho slowly approached and held out his hand. The guy gritted his teeth and cursed, but obediently placed the wooden bat in his hand. This was instinctual fear when facing someone much stronger. He swung the bat, smashing it hard against the thug. The wooden bat snapped in two. Another debt had just been paid. Now only the boss was left. He dropped the broken wood from his hand as lightning suddenly sparked and wrapped around his palm. At the same time, the boss, who was about to ram him with his motorcycle, again received the gift he had sent. The man's face twisted in agony as the lightning struck his skin, turning red and searing. His motorcycle was blown to pieces, and with no one driving it, it toppled over. As for the boss, he was thrown to the ground, tumbling over and over. It looked incredibly painful, but he was lucky. The power he used was only at E rank, so it wasn't that strong yet. But it was more than enough for a punishment. Leaving the entire group of thugs sprawled on the ground and the motorcycle engulfed in flames, Na Sun-ho walked away. The few guys who hadn't joined in on ganging up on Na Sun-ho felt a chill run down their spines at the sight. They were lucky they hadn't gotten involved. Otherwise, they would have had to face the punishment. And from something that wasn't human, no one dared to move. Even their breathing became more cautious. All of their eyes were glued to the back of that mysterious teenager. Returning home, Na Sun-ho didn't even take a break and immediately started working out. This was because the overcomer of adversity trait doesn't activate from self-inflicted pain. It only activates from external attacks when he's no longer able to fight. I still need to get used to this, to turn it into a powerful weapon. This will be my weapon to fight against the monsters, the 8 evils, and the 8 saints after Origin Day. Suddenly, the phone in his room rang. On the other end was a pleasant female voice. "Is this Na Sun-ho? There's an overseas call for you." Na Sun-ho asked to be connected, and as soon as the call went through, Jonathan's familiar voice came through his ear. He chuckled. "Good thing you contacted me before the curfew." Jonathan's mouth twitched. "Curfew? Could you please not ruin my attempts to ignore the fact that you're just a middle school student? Whatever." They really acted as if they were waiting for us. I almost got myself shot. From what I've gathered, our profit margin has passed 20%. It really was a close call, huh? He didn't mention Thailand's situation when he said it was a close call. That means Thailand still has more foreign currency reserves than he thought, so he's not yet sure if the hedge funds have truly won yet. He chuckled and said, "We already agreed to bet everything, didn't we?" "Jonathan, do you have any objections?" Jonathan replied helplessly. "I already agreed completely to spend $80 million just to read that pile of documents. And that's not even considering the outcome, just what we're doing right now. It's just too insane, isn't it?" "When's the deadline?" Na Sun-ho gave a mischievous smile. "On July 2nd, we'll place our biggest bet." Jonathan froze, clutching the travel shirt he was wearing. "I'm starting to lose my mind." "If your calculations are correct, you understand what that means, right? The way hedge funds like Sacred Dragon and the others will react." Na Sun-ho nodded. "I know. After all, they're the ones leading the charge. When representative hedge funds like the Sacred Dragon Fund start to move, the other funds just follow suit. The relationship between them is similar to the one between the 8 evils and saints and the world's hunters. When one person starts the fight on the front lines, the support factors behind them will create a disaster." Jonathan rested his head on his hand. "The one in the lead. That's a perfect description. So, if you're right, we're going to affect all the investment funds in the world with just a single incident. Oh my God, my weak heart is about to explode." Na Sun-ho said with a laugh, "Jonathan is much stronger than you think. Stop worrying about useless things and focus on preparing for the attack." "An attack?" Jonathan exclaimed. "That's one way of looking at it. Oh, all the money in the world, I'm coming to fight you all." On July 1st, Hong Kong officially returned to being a territory of China. Some say history repeats itself. A more modern version of the Opium War would replay itself in Asia. Western investment funds poured in dollars instead of opium to weaken their economic system. They surrounded them with tons of money from those nations. Instead of cannonballs on ships, the reason the Human Demon War took place in Asia before he regressed was because there was a sealed S-class dungeon there. It was led by one of the 8 great sages and his subordinates. However, the winner of that race was someone else. Sun Ho, growing impatient, repeatedly clicked the left mouse button for entertainment. He rested his chin on his hand and stared at the computer screen. Pagers don't even exist in this world anymore. There are only computers. This is so frustrating. I have no choice but to wait for a message from Jonathan. And the amount of foreign currency they could get back with the $200 million they bet is about $10 billion. Even if they bet everything on a collapse, the opposition would still have to accept it for the transaction to proceed. The baht market isn't that large. The amount of baht traded on the foreign exchange futures market each day is less than $10 billion. Sun Ho was worried that he didn't have enough fees to trade in this market. That's why we had to try to monopolize the favorable position to prepare for tomorrow's incident. There it is. A new email arrived. It was from Jonathan with just one short line. Preparations complete. Exhilarated, Sun Ho hugged his computer monitor. He did it. He had secured the favorable position for tomorrow. It felt like he'd just entered a dungeon with a bag full of equipment. He used to throw himself into dungeons without being sure if he could return safely. But now I'm trembling for a different reason. I'm certain the money is already in my pocket. I'd even risk my life for this. The points I worked so hard to accumulate will no longer be worthless due to bad luck. He clenched his fists, sat down in his chair, and took a deep breath to compose himself. No, I can't let my guard down. Even though it hasn't even been a year since I returned, it feels like my entire life from the original timeline passed by so long ago. Sun Ho ran a hand over his face, then immediately sent a reply to Jonathan. Preparations complete, Jonathan. We are going to clear a massive dungeon. That is why preparations complete. I'm saying this line for myself so I don't forget my initial resolve. The next day, Sun Ho was still a middle school student, so he couldn't avoid going to school and taking tests. It's currently 12 o'clock. Sun Ho glanced at the clock. Just as he predicted, the time difference between here and Thailand is 2 hours. In the next 30 minutes, the Bank of Thailand will announce the use of a floating exchange rate system. That's when it will all begin. As far as I remember, in my past life, there was a group that bet Thailand would fall. Similarly, another group also bet that Thailand would fall, but in mid-July. And, finally, there was a group that bet Thailand would win. In the end, according to the sequence of events in my past life, today is the day heaven and hell will be clearly divided for this group. However, because I intervened in the debate, the number of groups betting on Thailand's fall has significantly decreased. All the money from the groups that bet Thailand would win will come to us. The teacher's voice cut through his thoughts. Sun Ho, why are you spending your time looking at the clock instead of focusing on your test? We're in the middle of an exam. Sun Ho smiled and said, I'm sorry, I'll focus on the test right now. The teacher shook her head helplessly and continued walking around the classroom watching for cheaters. What a strange kid. He talks like a grown-up. Sun Ho watched the back of his homeroom teacher. He felt a little suspicious. Even though she should logically be the same person as before I went back in time, I have no memory of her at all. How strange. But he was in no mood to think about that right now, because the bell rang. 12:30. Lunchtime had arrived, and he had to get moving. Sun Ho quickly went to the teacher's office and asked for permission to leave school. The teacher looked at him in surprise. Again, Sun Ho, why is it that even though you always say you're not feeling well, every time I see you, you seem a little bigger? Oh, that's right. You tried to get a perfect score on the test to leave early, didn't you? Usually you intentionally make a few mistakes. To avoid a perfect score, I trust that you're not the type of student to skip class to do something bad so you can go. Sun Ho nodded and said, thank you. Just as he walked out of the classroom door, the teacher suddenly called him back. Sun Ho, you're not being ostracized by the class, are you? I don't mean anything by it. It's just that I always see you by yourself. She's been watching me. Sun Ho frowned slightly, but on the outside he answered politely, That's just my personality. I prefer being alone. He turned and bowed, saying, "Thank you for your concern, ma'am." Hearing that the teacher felt more at ease and smiled. "All right, you can go. You're talking like an adult again." This time, nothing else happened, but Na Sun-ho had already made a secret note about the upcoming investigation into the teacher. The teacher didn't seem to be doing well, but that wasn't important right now. Na Sun-ho rushed home where only his mother was at the moment. But upon seeing him, she didn't say much. In truth, the adults around him had all realized he was different from his peers. Na Sun-ho quickly went up to his room. He locked the door and pressed the computer's power button. His homeroom teacher had let him go home early, without asking why, and his parents didn't even ask questions despite seeing a phone bill for over 151. Na Sun-ho watched the computer boot up sluggishly, thinking to himself that he probably shouldn't expect much from the internet since he had to unplug the phone line and plug it into the computer just to get online. He really couldn't get used to this snail-paced connection. Na Sun-ho pursed his lips, his leg bouncing impatiently as he waited. On the other side, Jonathan had been waiting for a while when Na Sun-ho's email finally came through. "There you are." He quickly typed a reply. The two had just met briefly to confirm each other's identities. They immediately got down to business, confirming their stake percentages and the current exchange rate. Na Sun-ho then asked, "The main overseas information exchange sites are all frozen, so I can't check the market price. Right now, it looks like even after the dividends are paid out, there'll still be a substantial amount left, correct?" As Na Sun-ho sent the message, he felt a surge of pressure and loosened his tie. Staring intently at the computer screen, he muttered, "Come on, Jonathan, answer me." Jonathan swallowed hard and quickly typed back, "It's at 38 right now. We've made 300 times our initial investment. Before we withdraw, that's about $60 billion. Na Sun-ho suddenly felt a jolt of electricity shoot through him. His brain froze for a few seconds. "Oh my God, even though I saw this coming." And to see it for myself. Shaking, he sent a message to Jonathan. "We'll monitor the exchange rate until the very end." Jonathan replied, "The opposing side is starting to fight back. This means the profits are massive, and I think we should pull out immediately." Na Sun-ho read Jonathan's latest message. It seemed like he was behaving like an analyst reporting to his boss. He's probably trying to keep his emotions in check. Na Sun-ho cracked his knuckles, focusing all his attention on the time to come. "As we agreed beforehand, I will be the one who decides when we pull out. You don't need to worry about the opposition's countermeasures with today's announcement. Everything will be thrown into chaos." Jonathan said nothing more. Every single time the bot's value shifted, he reported it in detail to Na Sun-ho. Na Sun-ho trembled as he watched the numbers fluctuate erratically. The exchange rate would not stop dropping until everything was over. Trillions of won were vanishing right before his eyes. "Damn it!" He grabbed his other wrist to stop the shaking. "It's not like my life is on the line or anything, but I can't stop shaking." Gritting his teeth, he quickly typed a message telling Jonathan to start the withdrawal. In this war over the baht, the hedge fund coalition's main force was the spot market. Using the futures market was just one of his tactics. Participants in the futures market weren't guaranteed to succeed. They were only playing an auxiliary role, helping to mitigate the risks in the spot market. And we put every penny we had into the futures market. With a 50-time leverage, it was an insane and illogical move. But we won the bet. And now, reaping massive profits, we have to pull everything out. Not long after that, Jonathan messaged back saying their huge withdrawal had changed the market's atmosphere. Startled, Na Sun-ho rushed toward his computer screen. Then he pressed his face right up against it, as if he wanted to use it to teleport to Thailand immediately. "What is going on?" Just as I thought. This is different from what happened in history. The baht is rising fast. The baht is starting to recover. The investors are having another heart attack. This erratic fluctuation put so much pressure on both Jonathan and Na Sun-ho that they forgot to breathe. Compared to Na Sun-ho, Jonathan was under far more pressure to the point where his current awareness was completely focused on the baht's rise. 31, 32, 33, and then the rise stopped. It's going down. It's falling again. That was too close. Jonathan felt like he was about to pass out. The heavy weight on their chests finally lifted. Na Sun-ho guessed that their intervention had changed the course of history. Jonathan quickly messaged him back. We've successfully withdrawn 80% of the money. I think we should hold the remaining 20% until expiration. Nasunho understood that he didn't want to pull out and miss the chance to earn more from the bot's fall, but he quickly sent a message. Jonathan, the war is over. All that's left are scraps for the hyenas. Erase all our tracks and come to Korea. The battlefield will be shifting soon. News spread that Thailand's baht had entered a crisis, hitting an all-time low. The baht was exchanged at a rate of 30.48 to $1 yesterday. Due to the central bank's adoption of a floating exchange rate system, a unique feeling spread throughout Southeast Asia as the baht plummeted. At Seoul airport, a haggard Jonathan dragged his suitcase through the gate. Looking like a walking corpse, he couldn't even remember how he'd booked a taxi to the hotel. Nasunho was already waiting there. Jonathan walked over and placed a jet black alloy suitcase on the table. Nasunho couldn't help but feel anxious and worried as he looked at the case. Jonathan was visibly gaunt. He hadn't even bothered to shave, and his cheeks were sunken. He frowned and said, "During the withdrawal process, the amount we got was less than expected." Nasunho nodded. "That's not unexpected." So how much? Jonathan held up his hand. $50 billion. Holy shit. Nasunho was so shocked, he felt short of breath, like he was about to just pass out right there. Fainting would have been a relief. Jonathan jumped, asking urgently, "Are you all right?" Nasunho put a hand to his forehead and mumbled, "I'm fine." Jonathan shot back, "Yeah, right. I don't even remember how I got here myself." Jonathan ran both hands through his hair. Trying to compose himself, he said, "Jonathan, let's both calm down and get to work first. This is just the beginning of the economic crisis." And the Asian one. Pay attention to your health. Malaysia and Japan won't be affected, but Hong Kong will be, and soon. The moment Hong Kong was mentioned, the lifeless Jonathan suddenly sprang back to life. His eyes lit up as Na Sunho started talking about the market. Na Sunho looked at Jonathan and said, "I also have something I need your help with to get started. There are a few plots of land in Korea we need to buy." Jonathan had a dream. In that dream, a giant suddenly appeared. At first, he couldn't see the person's face clearly. He only saw that thing suddenly reach out, grab him tightly and squeeze. Jonathan was being crushed so hard he couldn't breathe. He gritted his teeth trying to see the thing that had him in its grasp. Damn it. Let go. That thing slowly moved closer to him. Jonathan was so scared he forgot to breathe because that person was none other than Jonathan. Jonathan was so frightened he jolted awake. Sweat was rolling down his forehead. He shot up, his heart still pounding in his chest. Just then, a flight attendant came over and announced, "Sir, we've arrived." Jonathan left the airport. On the way, he still couldn't shake the dream he just had. It was truly haunting. Looking at his blurry reflection in the car window, Jonathan told himself, "Don't overreact." Jonathan, that dream was so childish. He recalled their conversation from back then. Nasunho was planning to buy a few plots of land. Jonathan asked curiously, "You're planning on getting into real estate too?" Chewing on the vegetables in his soup, Na Sunho said, "Jonathan, real estate is just the beginning. From now on, and we'll do business in every market as long as it makes money." Jonathan could only think of one word: insane. To this guy, $50 billion was just starting capital. "Nasun, you and I, nothing bad is going to happen to us, right?" Nasunho speared a piece of steak with his fork and said seriously, "You should eat first, Jonathan. You look way too stressed." As he cut his steak, Na Sunho laid out his plan. "First, use my shares as collateral, then split up the company. If you want in, you should invest as much as possible." Jonathan swallowed the steak in his mouth and asked, "By splitting it up, how many companies are you picturing?" Nasunho raised his steak knife and said in a low voice, "The more complex the structure, the better, so no one can trace who's really behind it all. We have to take it to the point where the people who work in the companies don't even know who they're working for." Jonathan suddenly felt the steak he just swallowed not going down so smoothly. He asked hesitantly, "So, you're suggesting we set up hundreds of shell companies and the accompanying paperwork? This is a pretty blatant scheme," Nasunho said with a casual laugh. "Going it alone for so long must have been tough for you. When we move into Hong Kong, we should prepare a team." Jonathan gave a slight nod. "Thanks for appreciating my work. I haven't even had time to shower." Na Sun-ho said with a laugh. Their skills aren't important. We only need to care about their loyalty and honesty. Jonathan was a bit surprised. You don't care about their skills. I have some ideas if that's what you want, Na Sun-ho said, after we get the results we want. In Hong Kong, we should buy about 2 mid-sized investment firms and name one Kwok Corporation, where you used to work. Jonathan confessed sincerely, you're even giving me a job that I actually want to do. Na Sun-ho added, and let's gather as many experts as possible. Someone like, say, rapper JK. Jonathan's face paled. Oh my God, a company hunter. Are you saying you want to put MNA's top star in under my command? It feels like a dream. Na Sun-ho laughed and said, we'll let them use our resources, but we can't. Let them see the people working inside our company. Once the splitting of the companies is complete, I want one of those companies to be named Reborn and have it located here. I'll use it to buy a few things. Reborn. Na Sun-ho laughed and said, it's my father's name. It's a secret, but one day I'll tell him. He'd probably faint. Na Sun-ho chuckled. Jonathan, we should focus on getting the job done starting now. There's no time to be sitting on this pile of money. That time will come when all the money in the world is in our hands. Don't you think so? Jonathan let out a breath. It feels like a series of exciting days are ahead. Son, let's break our limits. Jonathan Investment Fund. That will be the name of our company. You can have all the fame, Jonathan. You can think of it as compensation for using your name and for me taking a small portion of your shares up front. An excited Jonathan returned to his post to find the people who were lost in the shadows. He opened the door, laughed, and asked everyone, how long are you all going to look so gloomy? We've finally made it to the big leagues. Welcome. This is the Jonathan Investment Firm. In this world, there is a type of monster called the Abyss Ant. They march in swarms of hundreds of thousands at a time, destroying everything in their path. They are always ravenous. Hedge funds and their backers are just like them. They move through Southeast Asia and stop there. Na Sun-ho mused the money they received ultimately became my money. It seems history has changed. They should catch up with the changes. A single group monopolized 8 on the 1st of July and sucked all the sweet nectar for themselves. As he was reading the newspaper, a man approached, interrupting his thoughts. He folded the newspaper and looked at the man. Then he asked, are there any changes to the contract terms? The man waved his hand and said, he said he'll accept the conditions. Since Chairman Choi is famous for his wealth and owns a building in Gangnam, you can trust him. Seeing you handle such a big contract at your age makes me feel quite envious. Right this way, sir. Na Sun-ho followed the man's lead. He now had more than enough to be able to rent an office. A 2-year contract with the entire deposit paid in cash. The exchange wouldn't be done with just his name written on paper. All of this was clearly illegal, but it was mutually beneficial as the money would go directly into Chairman Choi's slush fund. The man walked over, opened the door to his main office, smiled, and said, the cleaning is all done. You just need to bring your things in. Movers quickly arrived to help him move his things into the room. To the side, Na Sun-ho unpacked his belongings, preparing to set up. There was a very simple reason for renting this office. It was for the tight security. And here it is, an ADSL modem finally free from that old modem. Na Sun-ho was so happy he could cry. He laughed and said to the man who guided him, I'll pay the rental fee right now. If you take 2 boxes, that should be enough to cover it. I understand, Mr. Chairman. If you need anything related to the office, please contact me immediately. With that, he left the room, leaving Na Sun-ho to arrange things as he pleased. He was very satisfied with this office. Now then, until Jonathan returns to Korea, he wondered, should I decorate the place? He started by putting some drawings on the wall. They were monsters from the dungeons that he had met in his past life. This will be their first front line. Jonathan had long since begun reporting on new developments. He was handling the splitting of the companies. Out of the new startups, 8 groups were chosen to advance to the next step whenever they achieved something. This is how he changes companies. The groups currently discussing the company split have no idea what they're up against. All he cares about is the paperwork and the job. There are nearly 1,000 different types of taxes, and the commissions are indescribably high. Even Na Sun-ho was terrified of his own actions, but he'd already started, so he had to see it through. I'll have to plan how to split the funds myself now, he thought to himself. As for the Refrica issue I brought up, the situation is looking very positive right now. That's a good thing. Nasunho was very pleased and gave Jonathan another task to handle. Prioritize the prediction. Jonathan muttered, Prediction? Is it that this time? Isn't it just a simple investment concept for acquiring dollars? Reading Jonathan's question, he couldn't deny that he was right. It wasn't just a simple concept. The dot-com bubble burst led to a phenomenon of massive market capitalization, but that wasn't the main reason. The data language they created has been recognized as the industry standard since the 80s, including things like monster dungeons, stat skins, and probability boxes. That's all top-secret information handled only within the system. Of all the software, the most important data is the one directly linked to Lee Sun's main company Joy, a database for the revolutionary faction. If back then he'd had the chance to look through the materials that the revolutionary faction had acquired, the 8 Years' War might have turned out a little differently. Of course, I always knew that my interference would change the course of history. It's similar to a change in the internal development team. Therefore, it's crucial to keep the frequency of changes as low as possible. He quickly answered Jonathan's question, and the man had no further inquiries. Nasunho gazed into the distant future and thought to himself, Just you wait, you 8 immortals. I will take away all of your power. Back at Na Sunho's house, his mother was watching TV as usual. The recent financial news was on. Sin Financial Services will host a major meeting on the 21st to begin a venture project with Goldwyn, a foreign investment firm. They've decided to build an investment system. It focuses on resolutions under government-proposed profits. The name sounds very familiar because Goldwyn is just a company they created. Nasunho forced a smile. I feel kind of bad for the government for taking the bait and agreeing to the deal. Overseas capital is drying up like a receding tide. They must be desperate to get a piece of it. He put on his shoes, looked at his mother, and said, I'm heading out. Just then she realized he was about to go out. She walked over with a smile and said, Son, you should invite Dong-ho over to play sometime. I've heard about him several times, but I've never actually seen him. He's your best friend, isn't he? Nasunho suddenly felt a pang of guilt. He scratched his head and forced a laugh. Yeah. He couldn't possibly tell his mom that Dong-ho was a middle-aged foreign man. Then his mother asked, By the way, are you planning to continue with boxing? Nasunho smiled and said, If you're worried, I'll quit. His mother reached out and gently touched the carefully bandaged wound on his cheek. Aish, this kid. That's not what I meant. I'm sure it's difficult, but I'm still glad you're going to practice so consistently. You can do anything you want, son. Are you getting enough rest to be able to exercise? Nasunho said, Yes, I still need to practice a lot of things. His mother nodded. Take care, and remember to call me beforehand if you're coming home late. Nasunho left his house, pulling his hood over his head. He thought to himself, maybe I should take an allowance. At least then my parents would worry less, but who knows? He might just be the richest teenager in the world. But anyway, he needed to put his parents' minds at ease. At a large, luxurious building, Nasunho with his hood on. I walked inside like everyone else. In front of him were 3 men in suits. Nasunho walked up, glancing at them discreetly. Public bank employees. He had rented the ground floor of this building and built the most modern online network, the #1 digital bank in Korea. And this elevator in front of me, it's probably not for regular employees. The guys here must be at the executive or senior staff level. After a moment, one of the 3 men spoke. Ah, Kim, is this the thing the German commercial bank gave you? Right. Ah, he said in surprise. No, I've already confirmed it. The one who monopolized the market crash and the one who liquidated a huge number of companies on July 2nd. They're on the same team. Are they gods or something? If they swept up everything, imagine the money they pocketed. Man, that can't be a joke. They must have calculated everything perfectly. The remaining employee couldn't help but chime in. They're active in the Philippines, Singapore, and a few other places too. So the only place left is Hong Kong, right? The man who seemed to be the manager thought for a moment, then instructed his subordinate. Prepare all the documents we have. Didn't you realize this morning those lunatics are targeting Hong Kong? We'll set up a meeting immediately after we're done preparing. We have to catch those bastards. Na Sun Ho, standing behind them, heard the conversation. He sneered inwardly. Catch up to us, really. The biggest bank in the world is probably in the same situation, but how could they possibly catch up to us? We've long since dissolved into countless shell companies. Nasuno stepped into the elevator and the doors closed. Today was the day Jonathan returned to Korea, and he had immediately gone to Nashunho's office to check things out. The moment he saw the inside of the office, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this an office or a gym? Just look at all this workout equipment." Jonathan said, "It's just a silly thought, that's all." "But you seem to really like sports." "Huh, what do you think? Don't I look cool?" Jonathan walked over and lightly punched a nearby dumbbell. As a result, he hurt himself. Nashunho sighed helplessly. "Jonathan, an A-rank hunter, and he doesn't even know how to use that. Forget it." Jonathan's gaze then fell on two swords in the room. "This place is full of surprises. You know how to use these too." Nashunho didn't answer the question. He immediately got to the main point of the day. "Can I see the data you prepared?" Jonathan chuckled. "Huh, oh right. Let's get to work. Here, a list of the paper companies, the ones that only exist on paper." Jonathan placed a thick ledger on the table marked in alphabetical order. Nashunho flipped it open for a look. It was indeed complicated. "There are over 1,000 companies." Jonathan asked curiously, "Suppose we were to lose this document? We'd never know where our money went, or how much of it there was." Nashunho just smiled. "Let's stick with suppose." "You mean there'd be no problem manipulating the operating funds?" Jonathan nodded, but still looked a little worried. "Right, but if anyone else saw this list, we'd risk life in prison in the States. A sentence of up to 1,000 years, Nashunho said nonchalantly. "If the jury and the lawyers are well arranged, offshore tax evasion and conversely embezzlement of public funds. If I had to, I could solve anything with money. Everything I've done up to this point was to be able to create that kind of money. They're all criminals. The only difference is the scale." He took the ledger, made a copy of it, and then asked, "Can I keep the original list?" Jonathan agreed readily. "Sure." Nashunho smiled and asked, "You won't regret this, will you?" Jonathan shook his head. "No. On the contrary, I feel like everything is finally falling into place. It's like a dream." "All right then." Nashunho went to open the safe in his room. "You must be tired, so go get some rest. From now on, remember to never use a credit card, only cash." He took a stack of bills from his safe. Jonathan laughed and retorted, "Just like a criminal." Nashunho shook his head, correcting him. "Like a billionaire." Jonathan took the stack of money, smiling. "Now that's more like it. Get some good rest. I'll see you tomorrow morning." Jonathan was surprised. "Not this afternoon." Nashunho smiled. "We're on vacation, so..." Jonathan suddenly didn't want to hear what Nashunho would say next. He had a feeling the guy would just bring up the reality he was trying to escape. Suddenly, his attention fell on a painting of monsters in a labyrinth that Nashunho had on the wall. He might not recognize them now, but he would surely be meeting them soon enough. But since he didn't know that yet, he just assumed, looks like Nashunho likes monster drawings. He really is just a kid after all. Deparum, one of the 4 largest banks in North America. A woman named Emily, introducing herself as being from Jonathan Investment, arrived for a scheduled appointment. The person in charge nodded and flipped through the documents Emily handed him. "Pleased to meet you. This is a new type of swap transaction. I'll look it over as usual, but I don't want to waste your time. Who would agree to these terms?" Emily maintained a professional smile. "Could you please take a closer look at the contract? Jonathan Investment is Party B." The man froze his face, suddenly contorting. He had to cover his mouth to compose himself. "Ma'am, I don't think I'm qualified to evaluate this. I'll call my superior." Emily felt helpless, but all she could do was continue to wait. Before long, their superior arrived. He quickly flipped through the documents and contract Emily had brought, then asked, "If we take everything, the interest on the Hong Kong side will be 1,000. But the returns for Jonathan Investment will decrease rapidly. How much do you want?" Emily smiled and said, $500 million US. Then she saw the bald director trying his hardest. On a not to laugh out loud, Emily pretended to smooth her hair, but she was actually trying to hide her own embarrassment. "What I'm proposing sounds pretty ridiculous, doesn't it? Raising the interest rate to 50% was already insane. And now you're telling me 100%? How could anyone possibly make a profit from that?" "Jonathan, that damn bastard. Did you call me all the way here just for this stupid charade?" After he finally managed to stop laughing, that other director nonchalantly agreed to the contract. He had read this contract over and over again. There are no traps. As for the $500 million, just take it. Lee smiled, stepping forward to shake the director's hand as a formality. Thank you so much. Jonathan Investment is very much looking forward to cooperating with DP Karam. The preparations in Seoul are now complete. Jonathan also received a notification that the negotiations were complete. He had already bet all $5 billion. Nasunho laughed and said, once the bonds are dealt with, it'll be our turn. This all started 2 months ago. It was a beautiful day in November, and as usual, Nasunho went to see Jonathan only to find him looking completely worn out. He was a mess, slumped in his swivel chair in front of the still-open computer. Seeing his expression, Nasunho glanced at the computer screen and asked, how much have you lost? Jonathan covered his face with his hand. You know how it is. I've stopped counting. It's pretty hard to make all these different kinds of bets on the world stock market without getting caught. The stock markets, excluding the Asian sector, are maintaining steady growth. Even though I knew it was coming, it's still hard to watch the market collapse. It's just hard to swallow. Jonathan rested his chin on his hand, dejected. To be honest, he hadn't intended to follow every word Sun said. But an interest rate hike of 300%. Back then, Ne Sunho had told him Hong Kong is going to wreck the stock market. The look on his face. Ozzy definitely ranked in the top 10 most over-the-top reactions of his entire life. His mouth was hanging so wide open you could have fit a whole watermelon in it. Jonathan just stammered, unable to make a sound. He bit his lip hard, his face pale as if he were fighting some kind of internal battle. Jonathan slumped in his chair, head in his hands, groaning, why would Hong Kong do that? Nasunho chuckled and said, I've already checked. This is the only way to get rid of chatter. Jonathan asked, you think they'll give up that easily? Nasunho nodded. Yeah, I do. Jonathan fell silent. Hong Kong and Japan are the two financial fortresses of Asia. I want to establish trade with Japan, but if I go too far, their government won't let it slide. Therefore, the only one left is South Korea. Na Sunho nodded. Exactly. My country, South Korea. At the time, South Korea had enacted a monetary policy to block all foreign investment and intervention. That's why Chater targeted Southeast Asia, making everything worse. They then aimed for Hong Kong, a region that stood no chance of winning against South Korea. They scared away all the Korean investors and forced international banks to recall their funds instead of issuing loans to companies. As a result, South Korea slowly began to collapse from the inside. The fear of national bankruptcy grew, and that was when investors began to execute their pre-planned moves. But this time it's different. He cracked his knuckles, stretched, and sat down in the chair across from Jonathan. Nah, son, don't tell me. Nasunho grinned and said, we're going into the Hong Kong stock market. Time to shake things up a little. Trading began. A flurry of numbers from all sorts of convoluted financial instruments rose and fell, but most of Hong Kong's businesses were in the red, except for the banks, which still needed to be reassured. Suddenly, Jonathan anxiously announced, there's a group of people right on our tail. If we get caught, it's game over. Nasunho caught the tension too. He swallowed hard, trying to keep a level head. It's too early to say for sure, but Jonathan, you need to protect the New York company now. Jonathan shot up, pushed his chair back, and scrambled to make calls, giving orders remotely. Meanwhile, Na Sunho was just as busy with his own work on the computer. Right now, there are two possibilities. If I'm careful, I can identify the investors who are attacking Hong Kong. I can use my superior investment techniques in the stock market. Meanwhile, after his phone call, Jonathan was able to immediately start trading. Nasunho didn't rest for a single second. They absolutely had to drag the group that was tailing them out into the light. Individual investors can flee at any time, but an investment firm is different. Now, which one is it? The hedge fund is rising. Nasunho prayed, come on, please. If the Hong Kong stock market gets destroyed by my hands, history itself will change. I won't be able to predict the future anymore. There it is. Nasunho took a deep breath. The frantic pounding in his chest slowly began to subside. Jonathan relaxed his entire body, practically melting into his chair, his expression becoming one of pure relief. After a period of intense work that was so stressful, it nearly gave them a heart attack, they could finally rest. That was too close. We almost collapsed. Jonathan put a hand to his forehead. That moment was genuinely terrifying. Nasunho, for his part, had to agree. He sighed and said, "Let's just wrap everything up based on the closing time." That's enough exhaustion for one day. Luckily, nothing catastrophic happened. Now all we have to do is wait for the Hong Kong government's decision. As he was putting his suit jacket back on, ready to head home, Jonathan suddenly lost his mind for some reason. He dropped to his knees, clutching his head and looking up at the ceiling, shouting his name over and over. "Son, you were wrong. Son, you were wrong." Meanwhile, on the other side of the ocean, at the largest bank in America, a group of top executives was gathered, having a good laugh and patting themselves on the back over the recent contract. Profiting from a 100% interest rate hike in Hong Kong. How could anyone even come up with an idea like that? "So how much did they ask for?" The director replied, $500 million. The executives sitting there were stunned for a moment, then said excitedly, "Well, congratulations, you've just thrown $500 million out the window. You guys are so dead." But the CEO of Karam Bank remained completely calm, as if nothing had happened. "I thought he'd be fired after that disaster in Thailand. But judging by the current situation, there's definitely hope." "She said it was Jonathan's investment, didn't she?" "Thanks, my friend." On the TV, the financial news was on. A report about Hong Kong came on, and all the executives in the room turned their eyes toward it. They were curious to see the smile on the CEO's face vanish the moment he heard the news. His face went pale and cold sweat poured down his back. Hong Kong had raised its interest rate to 400%. The executives were stunned once again, then frantically started calling their people. Another round of chaotic shouting erupted in the room. As for that director, he was too scared to even speak. Because just a moment ago, he had thanked that good friend of his. No one could have imagined it would skyrocket like this. Assuming we had followed the plan correctly, the interest rate in Hong Kong would have risen to 100%, but the consequence would have been that the returns on Jonathan's investment would have plummeted. If the rate went up to 400%, then $500 million times 4. Karumeo. Sweat was pouring off him so heavily you'd think he was made of liquid. Where on earth did I go wrong? Oh, God. In a hotel in Seoul, Jonathan was so ecstatic he just wanted to run around in circles. He screamed to express his joy. "Na Sun Ho, you did it again, you crazy bastard!" Na Sun Ho took off his suit jacket and hurried over to the computer screen with Jonathan. To admire their success, Jonathan said excitedly, "It's not just Hong Kong. Stock markets all over the world are crashing. Spot trades, futures trades, they're all plummeting." Na Sun Ho couldn't believe it either. He couldn't believe he'd gotten this lucky again. They hit it big, this time. A massive windfall. The ripple effect of the Asian financial crisis created a domino effect. It was Black Monday in Hong Kong, the US, and Japan as stock prices plummeted. Europe's collapse followed. Once again, they had hit the fucking jackpot. The two of them were about to lose their minds. But this was only the beginning of a new era. People say blessings are hard to predict and misfortune is hard to avoid, but the power of the money I hold will crush everything. Na Sun Ho was sure of it after their big win in Hong Kong. News about Jonathan quickly spread across all the papers. He was recognized as the world's king of investment, hailed as the stock market investor who could predict the future. He was on the list of the world's top billionaires. The Billionaire list, Na Sun Ho said while lifting weights and talking to Jonathan on the phone. He sounded very excited. They can just write whatever they want. Actually, what they wrote is pretty damn close to the truth. Na Sun Ho was worried. "They're from the tax agency, right? No one knows my identity yet, do they?" Jonathan laughed and said, "If they found out who you are, it would be a complete catastrophe. They only know that 51% of the risk in Jonathan's investment is held by an unidentified person known as John. So that means everyone on Wall Street and at Forbes knows." Jonathan said, "I'll do my best to protect your identity. I've already hired experts." Na Sun Ho asked again, "How close is the tax agency to sniffing us out?" "Jonathan, we've cornered the entire profit market from Thailand, and we won the bet against the world's largest bank. I did some calculations. The company in New York is worth around $22 billion. So the assets John currently has are $11.2 billion, and I have $10.7 billion. We are ranked number 18 and number 20, respectively, on the list of world billionaires." Na Sun Ho wiped the sweat from his face. Lady Luck was clearly on their side this time. Jonathan agreed with that. Then he added, "That's right. If you include the money we made from the shell companies after the inflation incident, we'd be number 1 and number 2. Time passed slowly. It wasn't hard to spot the images of dejected men. A week after the Hong Kong incident, the South Korean government requested a bailout from the IMF. This time, it was 2 weeks earlier than the last incident. Only teachers bring up the IMF with teenagers. To them, it's just some old boring story, so they're more likely to laugh at it. He used to be the same way. Things weren't as simple as the gates opening and monsters pouring out. The moment he arrived at the company, he saw an employee holding the latest issue of Forbes magazine. The guy even cheerfully greeted him with a "good morning." Na Sunho recognized him. That's the foreign exchange employee from the management team at the bank. He doesn't even recognize me, even though we've bumped into each other a few times over the past couple of months. Can't blame him, though. He's too busy. Na Sunho shook his head. No need to get involved in this. He had another appointment, so he didn't bother to reply and just left directly, leaving the employee frozen stiff. What a rude guy. Inside the director's office, a graceful and beautiful woman was reading a newspaper while other employees lingered around. They were clearly admiring her beauty. Na Sunho shrugged, put on a perfectly standard smile, and walked towards the woman. "Miss Chami." Chami looked up at him. "Are you the interviewer? I've been waiting for you for a long time." Na Sunho handed Chami the business card he had prepared beforehand. She glanced quickly at the name on it. "Itachi. I want to ask you something first. Are you doing this because of my appearance, or do you genuinely care about your candidates?" Na Sunho said, "If this were just a normal interview, I wouldn't have given you my card. We've decided to hire you." Chami seemed surprised by this. Na Sunho added, "Your past isn't a problem either, Miss Chami. We're only concerned with your appearance and your profile here. We need a beautiful Asian woman who's a real estate expert to be our representative. Soon enough, you'll understand why your looks are so important." In fact, Wincia had investigated Chami at the core investment office in Asia. She was a smart, quick-witted, and strategic person who had turned negative perceptions of her company into positive ones. But the key thing was her willingness to do whatever it took to close a deal, even if it was illegal. Her 6 criminal convictions left a terrible impression in the corporate world. She was once a CEO and a major shareholder, but after orchestrating things from behind the scenes in an embezzlement scheme involving her former employees' profits, she was arrested for a time. "I've been looking for someone like her since August," Chami said, flustered, "but I've never even heard of your company's name. How can I work for you if I don't even know who you are?" Na Sunho smiled and said, Rionen Investment. That's the name of the company you'll be working for." Not long after that, a very important press conference took place in Korea. For the first time in history, a change of regime between the government and the opposition parties was carried out. This is a historic event, yet the presidential candidate still bears the immense responsibility of restoring the nation's economy. At this moment, this is the news from the press conference at the Blue House. The presidential candidate has revealed to DL Investment Company that he has received an investment of up to $17 billion. The presidential candidate expressed, "Let's overcome the foreign exchange market crisis together in the coming time." In the exit hallway, Na Sunho leaned against the wall, waiting for someone to appear. The door opened and a person dressed discreetly walked in. He chuckled softly and said, "Congratulations. You're now the most sought-after person in the political and business worlds across the entire country." Chami took off the hood of her overcoat and forced a smile. "Stop it, don't say another word." He took out a card and handed it to Chami. "This is a company card. You must always keep money in the linked account. That way there won't be a separate statement for your expenses." Chami smiled as she took the card. Na Sunho was a bit surprised. He had just bluntly told her to embezzle company funds, and yet she remained so calm. She really was the right person for the job. He then asked, "How do you plan to hire people?" Jamie asked. "They said I can do whatever I want, right?" Na Sunho smiled and said, "They also said they're committed to covering all management costs within the investment capital. I'll only be involved in special directives." Jamie nodded slightly. "My former colleagues will be arriving today. I also have to negotiate with the domestic real estate consulting firm Samgo Accounting Corporation and Kim Law Firm. You will send someone to this country. All problems are handled in those 2 places." Cho Zeone, the chief accountant, and Bak Jung-sik, the director of legal affairs. He had heard their names before. They were known as the elite of the business world. That's a really good choice. Chami walked over and touched the glass. Now we just need to find an office. You know this very building is for sale. Furthermore, its market price will continue to fall, Nasunho said, because more than half of the tenants moved out. Not long ago, Jamie arranged a meeting at the Blue House to carry out the special directives he had given her. The real estate market needed to be opened up as soon as possible, and as a result, the real estate market, it was opened half a year earlier than before. Jamie laughed and said, I ran into all my old rivals at the fire sale, alluding to the fire that broke out in a building, and the owner was forced to sell the remaining assets at a low price. But the situation in Korea is even worse than that. Jamie looked at her reflection in the glass, smiled, and said, Real estate is my specialty, but I can't help but consider other markets. An opportunity like this won't come again. Are your clients interested in domestic real estate? He sat down and replied, They're only interested in one thing. The rate of return. It's not just limited to real estate, you know. This comes with responsibility, Chami said nonchalantly. The profits will certainly be huge in this country. With enough money, even a child could sit in the chairman's seat. If that's the case, they'll understand we can expand our scope to other companies. Na Sun-ho nodded in agreement. What about a large number of shares from the nation's biggest company? They'll also fall into the hands of foreign businesses. Chami turned back to look at him and said, This is the ideal country for business. I know that. Is so ideal. But the more I understand, the more interested I become. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want to show you something harmless. Na Sun-ho looked at Chami in silence as if he were evaluating her. Chami, however, kept that same smile on her face. And she spoke enthusiastically about what she wanted. I've been reviewing the special directives whenever I have free time. It's about the real estate you want me to buy first, but the growth rate for most of... It is higher than you said. The real estate in Korea... Na Sun-ho cut Chami off, his voice cold. I understand you want to say what's on your mind, but that's enough. I won't be regularly involved in the affairs of Reborn Investment Company. I also expect you to be worthy of the trust from clients like me. But you absolutely must follow the special directives. Chami flinched instinctively, terrified. For some reason, in that moment, she felt as if she had just seen a terrifying monster, not a human. Unable to stop herself from trembling, she quickly said, It seems I got too excited. Nasunho said calmly, I understand. If you want to expand business with the investment company, I think you should recruit people from the loan branches of the 3 major banks. Chami nodded, not daring to utter another word. Regarding the special directive he gave her, the monetary transactions were very good, but those other things were what truly mattered. The dungeon in Korea. That evening, after finishing his meeting with Chami, Na Sun-ho went to that mountain to survey it. The night wind blew through his hair. Na Sun-ho was quite satisfied. It had taken some time to buy this hill and find the dungeon here, because this place looks completely different from the first time I came here. It's more like a military base. The military's power at that time was very strong. The hills and prisons were also under the government's control. Martial law was also strengthened. This probably won't happen again. Like me, the survivors who returned from the laboratory were called the Reserve Force. We were taken to a government research facility and thought we were going to become lab rats. However, when we faced the door to the challenge zone, I realized this was even worse than being a lab rat. Just then, a pickup truck slowly approached him. An older man got out of the truck, looked at him, and said, It's tough getting all the way out here. Hello, I'm Choi Chun-min. Na Sun-ho took out the business card for his alias Kim Jung-ho of Reborn Investment Company, handed it to Choi Jun-min, and said, It's a pleasure to work with you. The two of them quickly got into Choi Jun-min's pickup truck to discuss things privately. The older man asked, So, where's the construction site? He replied, From the entrance of the hill where we met. This entire area is the construction site. Oh my God! Choi Chun-min was startled. We must have been driving for 20 minutes already. Na Sun-ho said, Construction will take place at the entrance, and during excavation try to keep the area as intact as possible. The truck could go no further, so the two of them could only get out and walk. Na Sun-ho looked ahead and asked, Can you build a building? Choi Junmin quickly said, I can do anything. He then asked, so you can build a road, right? Choi Junmin was stunned. He continued to press him, can you do it? This needs to be done immediately. It's winter, and as you can see, the scale is quite large. Choi Chunmin clenched his fists. Tear down a mountain, build a road, and a whole building. The IMF crisis or whatever. I've got no other work, so I can't let this opportunity slip by. The older man quickly said, of course I can do it. Nasunho smiled satisfied. Please finish it in the shortest time possible. Once you've measured everything, remember that our concern is time, not money. He returned to the car and closed the door. As soon as Choi Chun-min got back in, he continued, I'll be getting estimates from other companies, but I'd rather have you complete this job. Choi Chun-min scratched his head bewildered. Why do you want me to do this? He looked over at Choi Chun-min and his gaze fell on a photo of the older man's daughter on the dashboard. Isn't this a difficult time for fathers? Although he knew any father would be capable of taking on this project. Choi Junmin couldn't help but be moved. With tears welling in his eyes, he looked at him. The older man wiped away his tears and mumbled, Thank you so much. After that meeting, Na Sun-ho returned to his home. Anyway, he was just a middle schooler who hadn't been home for long when his father returned completely drunk. As soon as he reached the door, he started calling, Honey, honey. His mother rushed over to help his dad into the house. Sober up. Sun-ho is right here. Ryonin mumbled, Sun-ho, our son, huh? On the last day of the year, even in the past, his father would come home drunk the day he was sentenced to a living death by an honorary retirement at a young age. But this time was different. Renan suddenly asked his wife, Can I move to another company? He asked, Can I move to another company? Reeking of alcohol, Ryonin stumbled towards him laughing. Sun-ho, Dad did it. Hey, I'm moving to a super famous company. Those guys were just bad luck. But what else could I do? A man's gotta eat to live right. His father had found a job at a company with the same name as him. Nasun-ho scratched his ear. He really hadn't seen this coming. In fact, he was only able to do it because of his father's influence, the man who had introduced him to the world of finance. One day, his dad gave him a bank book containing 1 million won, a huge sum for a high school student, and told him to think about which stocks to buy with it. It wasn't long after the IMF crisis ended. That was a time when even a monkey could make money. The amount in the book grew, and before he knew it, he had become a successful student investor. My beginner's luck was so good that I even asked my dad to invest more. He just chuckled and said, All right, but this time I'm not giving it to you. I'm only lending it. And not long after that, everything went downhill as soon as that US bubble burst, and half of it was gone. And then the other half disappeared. His father came to him and demanded the money he'd lent back. He wanted it by next week at the latest. He watched his own son cry in helplessness. His father just said, You can borrow from your mother to pay me back. Right now, I really need that money. That's what he told me so coldly. Nasun-ho was cornered and helpless. He cried out in shock, How could I do that? Ryonin said casually, If you don't, you'll have to give me your allowance every time you get it, and I'll be taking your CD player, your phone, and your computer. But even that is nothing compared to the money I lent you. You know that, don't you? You'll have to talk to your mother about this at the end of the day. You're a big boy now, but don't talk back to her. Who knows, if you listen to her, she might lend you the money. Then his father patted him on the shoulder, man to man. What I'm trying to say is, this is the reason I got laid off. I hope you understand that. I hope you become as interested in finance as you are in stocks. Your current situation is nothing but an anthill compared to the days when I was laid off. Once a person's career path is decided, their goals become clear, and so my first stock investment card became my good luck charm. My good luck charm. 2 days after receiving the information, Choi Jung-min immediately sent people to this place to start construction. The quiet mountain turned into a noisy construction site. In the end, Chairman Choi secured the construction site. It was good to see him working so confidently and calmly. He had created a very good team. He was confident in his connections with people, and he was satisfied with that. Of course, this mountain demolition caused villagers from the surrounding hamlets to gather and whisper among themselves. Nasun-ho quietly watched them on the way back with Chairman Choi. Nasun-ho then suggested, The village doesn't have a community hall. I'd like us to build one to appease the villagers. A community hall? We don't need to do that. I've already spoken with the village chief. Nasunho said, I heard the villagers used to gather mushrooms and keep bees in the forest. Choi Jung-min chuckled softly. They were doing it without permission anyway, so they couldn't have kept it up for long. Nasunho looked out the window. We will completely control access by putting up a fence around the entire base of the mountain. Choi Jung-min was surprised. You mean the entire place? Nasunho nodded. That's right. That way, no one besides the villagers will be able to go up the mountain. It would be very dangerous if someone were to stumble upon the dungeon. Nasunho said, the company is a foreign entity, so there are some areas where we can't be flexible. So Chairman Choi, please handle the issue with the villagers' attitudes. Choi Jung-min nodded. It looks like this is going to be another long journey. Nasunho understood that you can't force things when you're working on something big. You need the right solution to grease the wheels for the best results. In a private room at a traditional Korean restaurant, two men, accounting director Jo Da-eun and Park Jung-sik, were having a rather interesting conversation over cups of liquor. Jo Da-eun laughed and said, Isn't there that Pyeongdong construction project? It's already pissed off the public prosecutor's office. Director Park, aren't you colleagues with Mr. Kim Cheon-min? Park Jung-sik gave a cynical laugh. He's not my colleague, but it's not like he has any choice but to work his ass off, right? I'm planning to run for office in Gangnam-gu in the next election. Oh, even so, you never seem to rest, do you, sir? Why don't you cut the small talk and just tell me straight? Director Park Chung-sik chuckled. Do you think you can live with being indebted to me, huh? Cho Da-eun laughed and said, Of course not. Surely you know we're in the same boat. We're in-laws, aren't we? Park Chung-sik mused, You're right. Besides, aren't we literally on the same boat right now? A toast to our Xeonin investment company. Cho Da-eun drained the cup in his hand. Then he continued discussing the other topic. But Kim Cheon-min is a leader, so it would be a waste to just toss him aside. However, it might not be a loss either. The representative director has already been blocked. So what if we just do as we please? Even if we drag Kim Cheon-moon along against his will, it's a high-risk, low-reward investment. If we wait any longer, then we can bring Kim Cheon-moon into the fold, and that would be more reasonable than those Westerners. Aren't there one or two companies similar to PE construction right now, anyway? Oh, is that so? Cho Da-eun murmured, his gaze falling on his car keys on the table. They were from a domestic company, Daewoo Motors. If things go well, he smirked, it could become something like that. Park Chung-sik asked curiously, Has there ever been a positive case where that happened? Cho Da-eun smiled and said, Daewoo, I'm talking about the Daewoo Group. Did you know they're completely rotten to the core? Cho Da-eun raised an eyebrow. It's not like there's anything we can do, even if the VIPs keep on like this. Just let them be. Let them curse all they want. I'll give them an example of an exception. I'll use my leadership position to set another example. Then I'll shove money down those Westerners' throats. Will that be enough to scare that chicken? The corner of Park Chung-sik's mouth twitched. These guys are completely insane, but I like it. He raised his glass and laughed. Director Cho Da-eun chuckled. Don't just aim for a 2-year term, you have to secure the next one too. January 1998. In his office, Na Sun-ho leisurely leaned back in his chair, reading the latest economic news. In the wake of extremely high interest rates, many companies went bankrupt. This was the largest bankruptcy since the country's founding. Announcements of remaining production shutdowns by major companies caused a storm of unemployment. Even the fishing agreement signed with Japan, which took advantage of the serious financial issues, has also fallen apart. There were changes at first, but some things are stable. For example, DP Karam and Jose Manbank didn't participate until the second quarter of this year. Well, the reason is obvious now. These are all places where I intentionally lost money. They became desperate because of my losses. They had planned to join in the first quarter and pull out as much as possible. That's because the whole country is sitting on a ticking time bomb. I couldn't have predicted it would come to this, but Nasunho leaned back in his chair, and the newspaper in his hand fell to the floor with a thud. Protective custody for the chairman of the Daewoo Group, a wealthy man in the financial world. He muttered, I didn't think this would actually work. The top 3 largest conglomerates in Korea are Daehyun Daewoo and Insung. Daewoo is ranked second in the world, higher than Insung. Those two conglomerates are more famous internationally than Daehyun. The number 1 conglomerate, They have about 400 branches in different countries, 100,000 employees in Korea, and 200,000 employees internationally. Do you know anything about the Daewoo Group? Chami asked. Na Sun-ho, punching a boxing bag in his office, replied, Of course I do. Chami smiled and said, The chairman of Daewoo will have an arrest warrant issued for him tonight. He reached out and stopped the punching bag. He stopped his face a mask of shock. He wiped the sweat from his body with a towel and asked, What are you talking about? Give me the details. The Daewoo Group didn't go bankrupt just because of the IMF. All their problems were supposed to explode 2 years from now. But now they want to pick a fight with a prosperous Daewoo. He couldn't understand why. Chami calmly replied, I already told you. The two directors who were hired after he became CEO. Na Sun-ho still remembered Cho Da-ewan and Park Chung-sik. Chami nodded. Yes, they're both in politics now. He planted them there. The two of them are constantly meeting with major politicians. At first, I wasn't sure what was happening, but then I realized that's just how this country is. Thanks to that, we were able to add Daewoo to the list. Chami shrugged. Na Sun-ho frowned and cut her off. Every country has that. North America just normalized lobbying. But it's all the same. Please don't look at Korea like that. But it's true the country is very different because of the chaebols here. Please continue. My client will see that as a positive thing then. Chami nodded but was a bit more cautious. She said, It was those two who made Daewoo the scapegoat for the IMF, wasn't it? Daewoo has no flaws. Na Sun-ho frowned. I don't think the government would stand for that. Chami replied, That's why I decided to get involved in this. Na Sun-ho froze for a split second. He had a feeling this woman was truly like a venomous snake. She spoke with a cold tone and a chilling smile. We will soon meet the #1 financial group. Na Sun-ho chuckled softly. It seems this is when Daewoo begins to fall, huh? The lawsuit win rate for the elite is quite high, because even in peaceful times, many people are still thinking of ways to attack others to gain benefits for themselves and how to take down those stronger than them. Looking at people like that, everything starts to make sense. Both you and those two are quite amazing. The documents on Daewoo, held by the government, have been handed over to the court. Na Sun-ho was certain there was no way. That was all there was to it. He then asked what they wanted. Chami stated an investment of at least $500 million and Daewoo's compromise. Their debt, too. Of course, if it takes a bit more effort, then taking one of its subsidiaries will be fine. Na Sun-ho looked at Chami. Perhaps you need a little more time to understand the world of Korean finance and politics. The next administration will belong to the Democratic Party. If your side is the only one benefiting, you won't be able to avoid the government's scrutiny when the financial crisis subsides. They'll probably launch a thorough tax investigation. Those two directors aren't aiming for wealth or a buyout. Their real goal is to maintain their top 3 position. Daewoo Group's position isn't just a title, it's a real top 3 ranking. He looked at Chami, smiled, and asked, Can you even handle Daewoo? You're not planning on bringing in foreign leadership after you take it over, are you? Chami looked at him in surprise, the smile disappearing from her face. Na Sun-ho said, Investigate their new chairman. Start with the members of the board of directors. His closest associates, including his family, Cho Da-ewan and Park Chung-sik. They told you the same thing. How strange, Chami asked. So you agree. He said, Don't be so hasty. We are the client. Chami, don't worry about additional investments or the business direction. Just do your best. He poured himself a cup of hot coffee and slowly savored it. Is that clear? His eyes were as sharp as a predator's. Whether it's land, real estate, or even that corporation, don't let them snatch it away. Reincarnation investment must monopolize Korea's crisis. A flight from the U.S. to Seoul had just landed. Jonathan, having just arrived from America, had to head to a press conference. The waiting reporters frantically took his picture. The light from the camera flashes was blinding. After all, he was the god of investment right now. Jonathan, look over here. The reporters called out one after another, but Jonathan just wanted to disappear from this place immediately. I'm dead tired. The reporters swarmed him with questions like a broken beehive. The moderator randomly picked one of them and asked them to state their question. It was a reporter from MBS. As soon as he was called, he eagerly asked, Mr. Jonathan, I want to get rich. Where should I invest? Please give me a recommendation. This question earned judgmental looks from countless other reporters, who were also present there. What an unprofessional question. But Jonathan just laughed and said, "That's a great question, if you want to invest in one thing." The reporters fell silent, holding their breath and waiting for his answer. Jonathan said, "Invest in fear." The sound of camera shutters clicked again in a frenzy. That news quickly took over the front pages the next day, and that very newspaper was now in Na Sun-ho's hands. He held up a finger mimicking Jonathan's expression and said, "Invest in fear. I'm dying of laughter." Jonathan held up his hands helplessly and said, "Oh, come on." Na Sun-ho leaned back in his chair, laughing, and remarked, "That was a really friendly greeting you gave them." Jonathan sighed. "I just escaped from that mob. I didn't expect them to be so enthusiastic." Na Sun-ho handed Jonathan a bottle of liquor. "This country is completely helpless now." Jonathan looked surprised. "There's still hope, isn't there? The IMF is providing financial support, and you're pumping in dollars." Na Sun-ho nodded. "That's right. South Korea will overcome the IMF crisis soon enough. There are many heroes in history." Jonathan took a large gulp of the liquor, feeling refreshed. He wiped a bit of liquor from the corner of his mouth and asked, "Was that your doing?" Na Sun-ho smiled and asked, "You mean Daehu? It wasn't my plan, but I had a part in it." Reincarnation investment. Na Sun-ho said, "I just handed them the knife. The rest was up to them." Jonathan asked curiously, "Are you planning to take over Daehu Group?" Na Sun-ho smiled. "Something like that, but we'll restructure it and settle all its debt first." "But isn't that a bit forced? Why are you taking such a risk?" Na Sun-ho smiled and said, "Because the dollar won't always be the strongest. The crisis will end soon, and I'm preparing for that." Jonathan raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Son, you're so patriotic, huh? Money isn't the only thing that makes you want to take Daehu. You'll soon understand what I'm really after." Jonathan chuckled teasingly. "You don't have to be ashamed of being a patriot. When you have a lot of money, you can do whatever you want." Na Sun-ho put down his glass and calmly stated a number. $1 billion. I want another $1 billion. Added to the $1.5 billion that's about to be transferred, we will move $2.5 billion into the country on the same day we take over Daehu. The smile on Jonathan's face twisted. He turned pale. It had been a long time since he'd felt this way. Jonathan rested his forehead on his hand. "Think carefully. If you go on like this, you'll be sentenced to 100 million and 5 years in prison. Don't be so complacent. If they want to, the National Tax Service will find out soon enough." Na Sun-ho said, "If we move a sum that large, we won't be the ones in a hurry. The Korean government will be." Jonathan was surprised. "What do you mean?" Na Sun-ho stood up, leaned against the long table, and said, $2.5 billion. This is our chance to launder that money. Will the South Korean government really go for it? Why? Na Sun-ho shrugged. That's their problem. We just need to show them the number. Huh. Jonathan truly had no idea what the hell he was getting into. How could you? He raised the bottle and took a large swig. Na Sun-ho calmly watched his partner. Jonathan slammed the bottle down on the table. How could you even think about using an entire country to launder money after the tax investigation is over? The Daehu Group was forced into debt relief, yet not a single one of the managing directors resigned. This was quite rare. Except for the chairman's family, everyone else kept their positions. So Chami, how is the takeover coming along? Na Sun-ho asked. Chami replied, We have rivals, but don't worry. They'll just act as a shield for us. A shield, huh? You've picked up some fancy words. I saw that word used at the Blue House. It was related to the debt relief payments. Just then, a disruptive noise sounded nearby. He hung up and looked at the three people trembling on the ground. Looks like our business with Daehu is almost finished, he said, standing up. The three men kneeling on the ground scrambled to their feet, their faces swollen and bruised to a pulp. Not one of them dared to make a sound. He gave them a cold look and said, I won't interfere in your affairs, so don't bother me. Understand? The thugs flinched and shouted in unison, Yes, sir! Then scurried away the moment Na Sun-ho gave them leave, terrified he'd hit them again. But in truth, he couldn't be bothered to lay a hand on them. These guys are completely useless for my training, and they show up so often. I should probably get to school early. What excuse should I use this time? I've been absent a lot lately. Just then, that teacher appeared looking for him. Kim. She smiled and waved him over. What she wanted to say was, "It's not that the other students hate you, you know. They're just a little afraid of you. Of course, that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong." How strange, he thought, looking at the woman before him. During this time, my homeroom teacher should have been someone else. I ignored it since it was just a minor change, but I'm rather concerned about her attitude towards me. Unaware of his thoughts, the teacher held up her pinky. If you just try to approach them first, you'll find that school can be a very fun place. Promise me you'll graduate from middle school, okay? Sun-ho froze. It seemed he needed to look into this matter seriously. In class, the homeroom teacher was her usual self, as were the students. Sun-ho, meanwhile, sat brooding, as always, thinking about his teacher. He had hired a few professionals to investigate his homeroom teacher, Woo Sun-hee, 24 years old, born in Seoul, the eldest daughter of an ordinary family, no interest in personal grooming, and few social relationships. As a result, she rarely contacts her friends at this point. On the surface, she just seems like an unsociable person, but there were two very interesting points. First, she already knew who he was. According to the investigation, she has a keen interest in a specific type of person. While not quite a fetish, it could be called an eccentricity. The problem is, he is one of the types she's interested in. She has known about him since he was in elementary school. After passing her interview, it seems she worked extremely hard to become my homeroom teacher. As for the second point, according to her psychiatric records, the prescription she received was for common medications to treat depression or anxiety. However, she also presented with several other symptoms, seeing strange things or experiencing random auditory hallucinations. Most of these hallucinations were based on situations typically found in video games. This caused her to gradually distance herself from her family. The medication couldn't help her no matter how much she took it, because her delusions and hallucinations were real. Sun-ho sighed. I never expected to meet an awakened like this. And she's an extremely rare healer type. After school, as always, he went straight to his office and sat in his armchair on the top floor. He gazed pensively out the window at the city nightscape. Woo Sun-hee is a healer. The reason healers are so rare isn't just because of their abilities, but because they have a low probability of surviving their awakening. They can influence the minds of others with their power alone. After their trial, they're mentally backed into a corner, forced to endure the fatigue from others who have just awakened. At that point, they simply can't take it. In Woo Sun-hee's case, it must have been even more confusing for her, because she awakened before everything broke loose. I'm sure there's a dark reason behind all this. That must be why I've never heard her name before. The phone on his desk rang. It was Jonathan. He answered immediately. Jonathan's excited voice came through the line. It's done. Sun-ho chuckled. It's here already. Jonathan said, he's completely cornered. He was bragging about what he did and already hinting about his cut. You did well. Sun-ho thought. I knew you'd come through, Jonathan. Jonathan excitedly asked if I'd told him I was at Tesla yet. You know what kind of men Tesla men are, don't you? I'm glad Jonathan was able to go there. Sun-ho hung up and let out a sigh. A few days ago, he had thrown a document at Jonathan and asked him if he was planning to write a retirement plan. Jonathan asked in surprise why we need a stable plan instead of the aggressive ones we have now. Sun-ho nodded. That's right. Investing in falling indices isn't a bad idea, but it's not a good one either. Sir. He pointed to a series of numbers on the document and said, look at the portfolio. Their capacity is only about $1 billion. You already know how much we have now. At least $3 billion, right? I'm wondering what you're planning to do this time. When you told me you wanted to split the shares and go your own way. Sun-ho frowned, thinking, just how much does he think he can make? Have you lost your mind? Jonathan, on the contrary, answered calmly. We're talking about $6.5 billion. If we just stop and don't overthink it, it will keep growing. Try telling that to your family. Jonathan was surprised. Jonathan! Sun-ho cleared his throat, thinking to himself that it was best not to mention that name. Jonathan asked awkwardly, Hey, don't tell me your goal is the god of financiers whose assets are estimated to be 5 times the cost of building an entire country, the one who manipulated the course of a world war. The reason I was revived in this era. It's not just because of the index. If it were just for that, I wouldn't have to go this far. What's the purpose? I just want more. He muttered, You want more, huh? That's pretty cool. My apologies, Hiddink, Ne Sun Ho thought, then handed a prepared document to Jonathan with an instruction, keep this safe and use it to deal with the clients. Seeing that Jonathan still didn't quite understand, Na Sun Ho continued, wasn't there just a merger between the small and medium-sized investment firms? Jonathan froze. Ne Sun Ho's eyebrow twitched as he stared at Jonathan. Jonathan also broke out in a cold sweat, his heart filled with dread. As expected, he immediately flew into a rage and yelled right in Jonathan's face. Decline all interviews and events. If you focus too much on that stuff, you'll get careless, Jonathan said, flustered. I don't intend to make excuses for myself, but I don't like having people who are better than me working under me. That's why I often avoid them, because I'm afraid they'll realize it. How many times have I told you to just show your face? Na Sun Ho sighed helplessly. You know I can't do that. Have some confidence. Even if you hadn't met me, you would have been a huge success. Jonathan shrugged. As big as I am now. Jonathan, Ne Sun Ho prompted. Jonathan scratched his head and sighed. I'm sorry. There's a lot stressing me out. You know my situation. Na Sun Ho exploded like a monster again, yelling in Jonathan's face. That's why I told you to exercise. Your belly is even bigger than mine. Haven't you heard the saying, a healthy body leads to a healthy mind? Don't be so timid. Show them what you're capable of. He was sure that once the company started to expand, Jonathan would soon realize it. That there's a monster sleeping deep inside that body. But for now, that monster hasn't woken up yet, so Jonathan is still deeply melancholic. What can someone like me possibly show others? Na Sun Ho sighed. It'll probably be a long time before we see that monster. He then asked, did you know that the key people from Bluestone have come to Korea? Bluestone, the world's largest private equity firm, he asked, surprised. Are you planning to take over Bluestone? Weren't they supposed to be a small to medium-sized company? Na Sun Ho said, unfortunately, no. If they had taken a hit during the Asian financial crisis, things might be different, but they're still stable. But they have a weakness. That would be the Bluestone Capital Park 3 Fund. Jonathan frowned. You knew all of this. That's right. Bluestone is pouring everything they have into their third product. If none of the members come to Korea, Bluestone's new fund product will become useless, Na Sun Ho said. Let's start shaking things up from the bottom. You can do it. In the end, they ended up joining forces with Jonathan. Na Sun Ho rubbed his shoulder joints. Although that Bluestone company is quite appealing, I'm more interested in its members. Blue Jock 25. Later on, Kim Chong Soo Jin Lian and Resica will make that company grow exponentially. In their golden age, they'll manage funds of over $4 trillion. But right now, Blue Jock has no one, and it will stay that way. Na Sun Ho smiled, because the ghost bankers who control the world's economy from behind the scenes, will have to make way for someone else. His parents both think he's studying at a Bible college, but in reality, he's using his short spring break to go to the U.S. and handle the recruitment of Jillian and Jessica before they join Blue Jock, and to find the genius analyst Kim Jung-soo, who was dismissed and is now in hiding. But most importantly, at Jupi Private Investigation and Consulting, the investigator in charge of Na Sun Ho's trust was a man named John Clark. Na Sun Ho reached out, took John's hand, and said with a smile, "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Eden." After the greeting, the two of them got right down to business. John Clark said, "Mr. Eden, I heard that you're a trust manager, and that you're looking for a beneficiary." Na Sun Ho nodded. "That's correct. If you want to find a missing person, you naturally have to prove you have a blood relationship with them. If you want to track down a criminal, you have to prove your involvement in the case. But finding a beneficiary for a trust fund isn't difficult. This is still a society governed by law, and Na Sun Ho, of course, understood that he had to stay within the proper, almost legal boundaries. He said his name is Bobby, born in Brooklyn around 12 to 15 years old. He might be in New York. "Is there any other information?" John asked. Na Sun Ho said, "I can only give you a description of his physical appearance. Unfortunately, I've lost all the other information." John raised an eyebrow. "That's pretty limited information. With just this, finding him will take a lot of time and money. What you're describing is like telling me to search all over North America." Na Sun Ho nodded. I know time and money are not an issue because the amount the beneficiary will receive is many times greater than the cost of this case. So don't you hesitate at all. Mobilize as much manpower as you need. Na Sun Ho clenched his fist, thinking to himself, I have to find him no matter what it takes, because he is destined to become the leader of the 8 great evils, the man who will be known as the Demon of New York. At Jonathan Investment, Na Sun Ho arrived with a file on Jin Lian. He handed it to Jonathan. Jonathan looked at the file, then at him, and asked, Are you planning to recruit him through the back door? Na Sun Ho smiled and said, I'm planning to entrust him with a portion of the foreign fund, about $1.5 billion. Jonathan rested his chin on his hand, looking at the file, even though he's from the Malkin Group. And this is a bit unexpected. I guess he must be quite impressive, huh? Na Sun Ho gave a wry grin. You'll see soon enough that he's worthy of being a leader on the front lines, and this is a gift. Na Sun Ho placed his laptop in front of Jonathan. Curious, he started it up to take a look. An autobiography. Wait a minute. Jonathan looked closer. Isn't this investment research material? Oh my God. Jonathan was so shocked he almost screamed. This data helped analyze every single investment they had ever made. Jonathan found it even more unbelievable. Does this kid have a PhD or something? Jonathan's reaction was well within his expectations. After all, he had borrowed a few theories that didn't exist in this world yet. Na Sun Ho smiled and said, I'm not the author. I left the introduction blank. If this book is published under your name, no one will ever doubt your skills again. Jonathan covered his face, flustered. Wait a minute, but this is still... Na Sun Ho looked at Jonathan in silence. Jonathan looked back at him. Finally, Jonathan let out a helpless sigh and gave in. All right, I'll enjoy this fame until you decide to reveal yourself okay, but I want you to drop that formal way of speaking. Na Sun Ho blurted out, Sir! Jonathan raised his fist, winked, and said with a smile, Age doesn't matter. We're not just partners anymore. We're friends. Na Sun Ho was momentarily stunned. Friends. Oz-oh. It had been a long time since he'd heard that word. There's no such thing as friends among the awakened, but Jonathan still shared points and spoils with him. After all, they used to be teammates. But this Jonathan was completely different from the one he knew. Still, Na Sun Ho smiled. Having one more friend is a good thing, isn't it? He raised his hand and high-fived Jonathan man to man. Okay, my friend. Time slowly passed, the vacation ended, and Na Sun Ho had to go back to school. But on the first day back, he received news that his teacher, Woseon Hee, was taking a leave of absence for personal reasons until after the spring break. It turned out a little trouble had occurred. Woseon Hee's mother had come to the school and caused a huge scene. How could you let someone with a mental illness like her be a teacher? He had to postpone his plans to confirm whether Woseon Hee was actually an awakened or not. Today was more important than any other. This was the only place he could raise his stats before the trial. I need to be thoroughly prepared. To enter the dungeon, he waited until late at night after telling his family he wouldn't be home. Carrying a modest bag of belongings, Na Sun Ho went alone to the mountain he had bought. The night wind blew through his hair as he looked up at the large building before him. It was surrounded by countless other buildings, the perfect defensive barrier for a dungeon entrance disguised as a mental hospital. Na Sun Ho approached and opened the hospital door. He couldn't help but admire Chairman Choi's abilities. He really did a good job. At this rate, he'll be moving his company into the intro-urban area in no time. That is, if I can make it back home in one piece. Na Sun Ho opened a closed door and stepped into a room that would have been normal if not for the strange stone slab in the center. He walked over and activated the stone. The dungeon gate appeared a door that seemed to hold the quiet and terrifying power of the void. The system prompted him again. Do you wish to open the dungeon? Even though it was just an F-rank dungeon, the thought of going in, with no escape ticket whatsoever, was no different from walking into a lion's den. Na Sun Ho sighed. But this is the only way to improve my stats. He reached out his hand, agreeing to open the dungeon gate. The light from the void-like portal before him began to shift and intertwine, gradually forming the shape of a rectangular door. The light slowly faded. An entrance was revealed with stairs leading deep underground. Na Sun Ho cautiously entered, shining his flashlight into the depths below to scout the area. Inside the dungeon, Electronics and all types of firearms won't work. All I can use is the sword I had custom made in Namdaemun, a few painkillers, and some emergency rations. Just in case of an emergency. This shabby survival backpack is nothing compared to what I used to have, but I have no other choice. He stepped through the gate of light. His body was gradually enveloped by the light. The text on the system screen changed. You have entered the dungeon. Across the ocean on a beautiful evening, Jonathan received an email. It was from Nasunho. He hummed to himself as he opened it. Let's see here. I wonder what kind of juicy plan he's cooked up this time. Suddenly, Jonathan's face froze. His mouth fell open as he stared at the computer screen. What is this? A will, you've got to be kidding me. Inside the dungeon, just as he stepped in, a massive wolf lunged at him. The entire jet-black hound's 2 front limbs had morphed into arms. It rushed towards Nasunho and swung down hard. If he hadn't dodged in time, he would have been a goner for sure. Nasunho brandished the small knife in his hand and with all his might plunged it into the wolf's body. It snarled and thrashed in pain. Nasunho repeatedly stabbed down, plunging the knife into its neck again and again. Just then another wolf appeared silently from behind and lunged, sinking its teeth deep into his shoulder. The sharp fangs dug into his flesh. Nasunho gritted his teeth, enduring the pain. He flipped the knife in his hand and swung it with precision, slashing the ambushing wolf's eye. It roared in agony as blood streamed from the wound. Yet another one charged. Nasunho grabbed the sword he had prepared beforehand. As the black wolf lunged, his movements were somewhat sluggish due to his shoulder injury. This gave the black wolf an opening. It grabbed his face and pinned him down. Its shaggy fur brushed against his skin as it panted drool, dripping down. The foul stench filled Nasunho's nostrils. He frowned and cursed, damn it, damn it! As the wolf closed in, Nasunho fumbled for the dagger at his hip and plunged it into the beast. The system notification rang out. You have killed a Shadow Hound Scout. Current progress 3 out of 60. The Shadow Hound's body pinning him was thrown aside. Nasunho wiped the blood from his face. Damn, I was almost a goner. Species number KFO7, the Shadow Hound tribe. Because they're relatively easy to deal with, they were named after hunting dogs. I already figured as much. Still, it's tough to beat even 1 or 2 of them with F-rank stats. Nasunho gave the wound on his shoulder a quick makeshift bandage and continued on. This dungeon was a maze type. The area where the 3 scouts appeared was the path right before the entrance. Because its structure changes constantly, there's no way of knowing what's inside the dungeon beforehand. There are a total of 3 missions in the dungeon. The first is to kill the boss. The next is a hunting mission. And the third is a duel mission. The only way to escape the maze is to complete all 3. Or use the escape ticket. The reason he chose to clear this dungeon was quite simple because he knew how to kill the boss, and the escape ticket was the reward he received for completing that pathetic hunting quest. Nasunho sighed, thinking about risking his life for that hunt when it was just an incredibly simple quest from the system. Nasunho stopped. In front of him was something rather strange. A dungeon chest protected by a layer of earth, but thanks to the properties of the maze, he could clearly see its shape. Many awakened had been fooled by it. It looks like a bronze chest. If they're lucky, they'll get a reward worthy of a bronze chest. But if they're unlucky, they could get a gag chest that plays with the player's fears or psychologically manipulates them. I might not make it back safely if I get cursed now. Nasunho turned and walked away. It's best to ignore this chest for now. Nasunho walked a bit further and saw a closed wooden door. He took the backpack off his shoulder, approached, and reached out to touch the door. He silently prayed, hoping there was only one of them behind this door. Please, just let there be one. Please, just give me one. He cracked the door open. Inside, he didn't see just one. He saw countless glowing eyes staring toward the door. The space suddenly fell silent. I can't even tell how many of these dogs there are. The slightly ajar wooden door was shut again. Nasunho gritted his teeth and cursed. I was trying not to use my skills if possible, but that's not an option anymore. He gritted his teeth and used the skill, Wrath of the God Odin. It could enhance a weapon with lightning properties. The weapon in his hand was empowered, crackling as lightning seemed to wrap around it. The blade gleamed. Nasunho took a deep breath, then kicked the wooden door to pieces. Holding the sword of Odin in his hand, he yelled, Come on, you dogs! Countless pairs of glowing eyes charged forward at once, moving through the darkness. The system screen was still displaying the mission progress. Shadowhound warriors defeated 3 out of 60. Nasunho swung his sword wildly, slashing and killing. The current number of Shadowhounds killed had risen to 12. He continued to swing his sword like a madman as the charging dogs were cut down. With the enhanced sword, the number of kills kept rising. Nasunho slashed until his hands went numb, his brain slowly sinking into a deadly trance as the Shadowhounds just kept coming. The gleaming sword was like lightning dancing in the air, ending the lives of the Shadowhounds. He swung his sword hard in a wide arc, sending a slash of lightning through the air. But suddenly the attack was blocked. He looked at the ferocious Shadowhound in front of him. It was growling, its 2 hands gripping his sword tightly, its muscles bulging as it resisted. Nasunho gritted his teeth. "I can't block this with my strength alone." The dog holding his sword growled, and the pack behind it swarmed forward like a disturbed hornet's nest. The space was filled with the stench of blood, a simple brutal battle for survival. Time passed. The ground was covered in the blood and corpses of the Shadowhounds. Nasunho lay collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. His body was covered in a web of scratches from the Shadowhounds, his clothes torn to shreds. He didn't even know when he had lost consciousness. Suddenly, he jolted awake. A wave of pain crashed over him, and for a moment he couldn't adapt. Nasunho doubled over and let out a long, dry cough. He trembled as he forced himself up. The shoulder of his shirt was soaked with blood. His vision was somewhat hazy as he looked around. Nasunho asked himself, "How much time has passed?" The system. A system notification appeared. As soon as you enter an incapacitated state, your abilities and skills will increase by 1 tier. Minor wounds will be healed, and pain will be nullified for a period of time. Duration 5 minutes. Cooldown 7 days. Time remaining 6 days and 1 hour. I woke up after 23 hours. I can't believe I used Overcomer of Adversity in the very first room. It's a good thing my left arm is still attached. If I hadn't recovered in time with that skill, my arm probably would have fallen off. And that would have been pretty complicated to explain to my parents. He had now made a good deal of progress on the mission. Shadowhound warriors defeated 56 out of 69. Points received 112. Current total 204 points. Nasunho sighed unconsciously. Now I finally see how valuable the reward from the system's tutorial quest was. First, I'll put away the escape ticket from the quest. If I only need to kill 4 more, I can do this. Nasunho limped out of the room. Just as he was thinking about killing 4 more Shadowhound warriors, 2 of them poked their heads through the doorway. What great timing. Right as he woke up. "Are they here because of the blood? All right, bring it on." He raised his sword, ready to attack at any moment. But the 2 dogs suddenly stopped, looking hesitant. Nasunho wondered in confusion. What is it? What's going on? Are they afraid of me? No. A moment later, he realized he'd been overthinking it, because behind those 2 hounds were 2 other dog heads. Wait, what? 2 heads, not 2 Shadowhound warriors. A single 2-headed Shadowhound warrior stepped inside holding a large sword in each of its 2 hands. A rigged duel mission. Nasunho was scared out of his wits. Why is it here? There's no time to think about that, because the dog's blade was already swinging, cutting a gleaming arc through the air. Nasunho dropped to the ground to dodge. Its other hand swung its sword up. It slashed down hard right where he'd just been. Thank God. Nasunho had to nimbly leap aside just to escape death. But this thing in front of him, it had to be at least E rank. He had no way of dealing with it now. Without some kind of miracle, was he really going to die here today? One of the dogheads glanced at him. Then he powerfully swung the blade in its hand. Nasunho launched himself into the air, dodging the frenzied attack. Normally, having 2 heads makes it easier to keep watch. One of the 2 looked up and saw Nasunho's position. It immediately controlled its body and gave chase, staying hot on his heels. Damn it. If I don't kill it, I'm dead meat. As Nasunho fled, he desperately looked for a way to kill the hellhound. He ran towards the chest he'd had no intention of opening earlier. At the same time, the hound lunged, slamming into him. He ducked and threw himself forward, grabbing the chest. Would you like to open the dungeon chest? One of the hellhound's arms grabbed him. Nasunho desperately screamed, "Open the chest!" The hellhound raised its other arm to the sky, ready to smash Nasunho down. The chest in his hands fell as a result, but luckily he had already activated the command to open it. The reward was an escape ticket. The hellhound grabbed him tightly by the leg. Then it slammed him violently into the ground so hard he almost met his maker. Fortunately, he used the escape ticket just in time. Right before his body was about to be smashed to pieces against the wall, he was teleported outside. His body was left dangling above the dungeon entrance. Then he fell to the ground with a thud, but this was a gentle landing compared to the Hellhound's attack. Nasun Ho shot up looking around in a daze. Blood was still streaming down his forehead. He must have used the escape ticket purely on instinct. He stared at the dungeon gate in front of him. Nasun Ho was utterly stunned. He panted, his heart pounding in his ears. Then a low chuckle escaped his lips, and it grew louder and louder. Nasun Ho brought a hand up to cover his face, unable to stop it. He laughed with such glee that his whole body trembled. So the escape ticket was in the dungeon chest. So that's why that guy was so obsessed with the system. But this was just a taste of how horrifying it could be. It makes people struggle clinging to hope until the very end. Nasun Ho gave a bitter laugh. He took out his phone. It's all right now. But it's so ridiculous. I went into a dungeon all by myself. If I hadn't done that. The moment he turned on his phone, he saw 30 missed calls from Jonathan. I'll call him back later, he told himself. And at her home, Woo Seon-hee was resting when her phone rang. She answered immediately. Nasun Ho got straight to the point. I'm guessing you didn't go to the hospital, did you? Sun Ho Woo Seon-hee asked, surprised. Hello, Ms. Woo Seon-hee. After a brief exchange, Woo Seon-hee hung up and immediately drove to the mountain where Nasun Ho was. He had just finished bandaging his wounds. He stepped outside the gate and waited for a moment before Woo Seon-hee found him. The sight of him covered in bandages shocked her. She was also somewhat worried. Sun Ho, what happened? Why are you hurt like this? I'm fine. Please come inside, he said. The teacher looked toward the building. She looked at it behind him and said with some hesitation, Sun Ho, this place? It was the sign for a mental hospital. Nasun Ho said, Don't worry. What's wrong with a mental hospital? It's just the two of us here. Woo Seon-hee exclaimed in horror, Nothing! That's even weirder, Sun Ho. I'm not crazy, she said, trembling. It's hard to explain, but I know. He cut her off. I called you here to explain the situation. If she had a good skill, she would have already read my thoughts. So she's not that strong yet. He placed a hand on the car door, looking into Woo Seon-hee's eyes from behind the window. He spoke his voice like the devil's invitation. You have a choice. You can go back to your normal life and live as if you're insane, or you can come with me. Make your decision. Do you want to go back and live like a crazy person, or do you want to follow me? A ferocious beast lunged forward. Woo Seon-hee panicked. What is that thing? Calm down, Seo-ju explained. He thought to himself, was that a bit too much for her? So you're saying, she trembled, that we've been chosen to fight those monsters. And those monsters will soon invade our world. The day it all begins, he said. I've been preparing for that day. Down that path there are tons of monsters, just like the one you just saw. She broke out in a sweat. Please take this. Woo Seon-hee looked up. What is this? A contract. If you decide to challenge the dungeons with me, I will reward you according to this contract. If not, please live your normal life as if nothing happened until the day it all begins. Not everyone is meant to fight. Please go back. I'll be here until tomorrow, she replied. Since this is a life or death decision, please think about it carefully. Innate status window Woo Seon-hee. Traits 1, skills 1. Health F, strength. Agility F2, intellect F12. That illusion. I started seeing it when I was in middle school. A blue window that only I could see. I once told my mom about it, but she just dragged me to a prayer house. One day, I started experiencing other people's emotions. I tried to figure out if they were related somehow, but I failed miserably. And among them, there was one person whose feelings I could sense most strongly. Seo-ju. No. I thought I might be able to find some clues from him, but this is too much. Contract fee is 200 million won, and the annual salary is 100 million won. A 5 million won incentive will be provided for each dungeon entry and a performance bonus of 50 million won upon survival. Death compensation is 3 times the annual salary, 300 million won. She broke out in a cold sweat. What the hell is this amount of money? I haven't been charmed or anything, have I? He wondered, turning back to look at Seo-nu as she walked toward the car. Have you made your decision? Wu Jinhai looked at him. I understand. He sighed. Welcome to the other side of the world, Model High, the awakened subconscious. The car sped off. What do you think about slowing down a little, he asked, if you're doing this? Is it because you feel it's absurd to have an obligation to me? I was grateful to you even before you told me everything. All I could think about was how I should just die. I have no reason to refuse. It's just a huge amount of money and accepting the fact that I'm not safe. Right, he thought to himself, she's trying to act tough while her hands are shaking so violently. But can you really give me that much money? Wu Jinhai asked. He answered, you'll find out when we get there. She looked at him, then said, why are you speaking so informally to me? Are you older than I am? He froze. You could say that, but age means nothing in the world we're about to live in. You'll realize that soon enough. Jonathan's jaw dropped. You said you were fine, so what's with all those bandages? How badly are you hurt? He replied, I'm a celebrity. How can I just go wherever I want? No one's following you, right? Does that even matter right now? You really? He yelled. I'm stopping here, don't worry. Wu Jin, I looked at him. Are you the investor, Jonathan? The hunter, Jonathan. The two of them looked at each other. Seo Nu introduced them. Go on, say hello. He's the one who accepted our contract. The choice of Forbes' top 20 billionaires in the world. A god of the investment world. Jonathan the hunter. What else is there for you to worry about, right? Jonathan asked. Hey son, why give that girl so much money? If you both disappear, you're giving her father $3 billion. Are you crazy? Sorry, I'll tell you later when I have time. Just wait until then. He stopped. I ordered your favorite dish. A table of hot food. It's okay, I guess. The restaurant you like must be closed. That amazing restaurant. They must be struggling, not just in our country, but all the international capital that was flowing into Asia. Where has it all gone? Right now, it's in Eastern Europe or Latin America, Jonathan answered. There's one more place. Russia. No way. Jonathan closed his laptop. How many nuclear weapons does Russia have? That country can't be destroyed. Everyone thinks that, but we're going there. Jonathan, you asked how great Jinlin was, right? I'm asking if you recruited her for personal reasons. What else can I say about a member of Morgan? Go compete with Russia. Whoever bids higher will profit. Hey son, are you kidding me? I'll introduce you to a good friend, Jinlin Ryan. Her Korean name is Kim Jung-soo. Her husband isn't doing too well right now, but please take care of him. Jonathan said, so my job is to follow you, boss. Finally a break after so long. What are you talking about? We have to speed up. There's a Russian government bond sale happening. We're going to make a big move. About $1 billion. The plane flew through the sky. Jonathan sat inside thinking Russia is in crisis. He knows it's about to collapse, yet he dares to pour in $1 billion. Here we go again. Jonathan Jinlin, Jessica, Kim Jung-soo. The knights of the financial world are starting to move. The knights who will enter the dungeon. It's time. Attack, Wu Jinhai froze. What Seo knew, this is not good. If this were a real dungeon, you'd have died 10 times by now. Clause 1 of the contract, anything related to the dungeon, is absolute. Of course, that includes training related to the dungeon. Did you forget the ability Wu Jinhai taught me? It's unusual. The target's emotional sensitivity is transmitted abnormally. F rank. A buff. She can't even be classified as a hunter. But there's one skill that caught my attention. Touch of Marie. A skill that restores the unable to fight status of a touched target. F rank. A 24-hour cooldown. I've never heard of it in this era, so I have to test it. A skill that makes the wounds of the touched target heal faster. Wu Jinhai stabs with her knife, and the stabbed subject will recover, while she will have to bear that wound herself. It's a bit rushed, but we don't have time. If you hesitate in a dungeon, we'll both die. This is the last time. He screamed, "Go on, stab me!" She used every last bit of her strength after the enemy's attack. When she was in critical danger from losing too much blood, that's when Marie's touch would be used. Her touch makes you forget the pain as your wounds recover, though not completely. Then I can immediately resume fighting with my body partially restored. But the pain Johnny has to endure to use that skill on that small body. She has to suffer 3 times the pain. This is not a skill to be taken lightly. It can't be used carelessly in a critical situation. Can she really do it? He thought to himself. Marie's touch. In the dungeon, I wonder if she'll be able to use it without hesitation. Lying on the bed, her eyes suddenly shot open. "How long have I been out?" He replied, "About 12 hours. I thought you were a goner." "Huh, that was easier than I thought. Did I overreact?" "You did great, but you should still be careful with that wound for the next few days. Looks like the painkillers are helping right. I'm heading out for a little while, so you just rest up here, okay? And remember, don't do anything too strenuous." She looked up at him and sighed. "Yes, because orders related to the dungeon are absolute. At Jenny Investments, how can we help you?" "I'm here to see my dad." Two people emerged from inside. "Oh, Seonu, you're here. It's so good to see you." "This is my son." "Hello, sir. He's really handsome. I'm so jealous of you. Which university does he go to? He looks pretty grown up, doesn't he?" "He's just a high school student." "Huh. Oh, really? Ha ha ha. Having a son like him. I'm beyond jealous. Here, this is for you, so you can study hard and become as successful as your dad." "Thank you, sir." A subordinate giving my dad pocket money. "You must be surprised I called you here. I wanted to show you the company at least once. There are a few things I want to tell you, things your mom doesn't know. I got promoted twice. It's a secret, okay? I'm planning to surprise your mom tonight. I'll be working here from tomorrow on. The company I work for is a foreign exchange bank. I worked really hard for this." "I didn't know he had done so well." "I did a great job, didn't I? You know, Dad's company is a foreign one, right?" He patted his son's shoulder. "What I mean is, do you know why our country is in its current state? It's good that you know. I'd be very happy if you took an interest in economics." Today is the day that lucky person arrived, Seonu thought. He took the money, wondering if he should buy some stocks with it. "Then tell me about it, okay? Let's talk a lot about it together." "I entered the world of finance with this bank account. I survived and experienced so much on Wall Street. This bank account was the first step in the butterfly effect. Everything was prepared to enter the dungeon. An arrow flew forward, piercing right through the center. See? I've gotten pretty good at aiming now." "Right," Waidy on High asked. Seonu observed her. "I'm not even sure she can do any real damage with that thing, but there's no other way. She definitely can't handle close-quarters combat. Asterisk. We're going into the dungeon tomorrow. Is there anything else I need to prepare? If there was something so important I had to remind you about it, it would be to write your will. In reality, there's a very high chance she won't make it back." Blood splattered. With a determined look in her eyes, Wei Dianxi realized just how shallow her perception of the dungeon truly was. "We only survive by killing other living creatures. There's no difference between monsters and humanity. Heal." Wei Dianxi tried to use body therapy. The wound healed slightly. The monster collapsed. Seonu suddenly shot to his feet. Wei Dianxi stared slack-jawed. He handled this whole area by himself. "You did well. You didn't lose your nerve in the middle of all that. This is a battle for survival. You have completed the quest, Subjugate the Nether Hounds, Reward Escape Talisman. I'll take this." "You don't have any objections, do you?" Even though she knows this could be the one thing that saves her. Her willpower is stronger than I thought. Huh, he wondered. Just as I predicted, having a healer makes fighting much more effective. If I were on my own, I'd just have to endure the wounds with painkillers. Though it's still more or less bearable. I never thought the day would come when I'd have someone from the spirit world as a companion. The only ones who escaped were two villains from the spirit world. Their phantom ability allows them to use illusory martial arts attacks at any time and in any form they wish. I don't even want to know what else he's capable of. Goaty and he used phobia treatment. He's surprised as she points an arrow at him. I get it. So that's how we're going to do this, huh? I knew it. The spirit world has made me more sensitive. No, I'm fine. I was just thinking about the past a little. Sorry. Should we wait a little longer for you to calm down? No, Goaty and he replied. You're doing very well with what I've taught you. Don't hesitate if you sense anything suspicious, even the slightest thing. We're heading to the second room. He opens the door. He observes Goaty and he. Don't forget what I told you. The instructions I gave you about what to do if we encounter the two-headed monster. He's attacked his weapon, sent flying. He tries to dodge the blows. Seoyun fights back, but so does the beast. If you want to live, you have to run. Seoyun, don't you die? She runs, tears streaming down her face. You can't die on me. She keeps running. I feel like my heart is going to explode. My stamina is pathetic, but I still can't use Marie Stop. What do I have to do to survive? Where am I supposed to get stamina from now? She looks up. You have completed the daily quest. Please decide who will be the first and second place players. She screams, Seoyun, Seoyun, Seoyun won. Blood splatters everywhere. The monster looks. That's right. Over here, you dogs. The one who carries the bloodlust that drives you mad is right here, System 1-on-1 Combat Challenge. You have completed the requirement. Please decide first and second place based on the consensus of both parties. He watches her, so she still wants to live. The one who overcame all difficulties. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 10 seconds. The one who overcame all difficulties. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 5 seconds, 3 seconds. Well done, Godion-hee. When I open my eyes, the pain is excruciating. Suddenly, I think of the demon leader. He must have gone through this kind of chaos many times. The old me would have been jealous of that disposition of his, but I never anticipated such intense pain. I've used all my healing skills, but it's no use. You survived too, Godion-hee. I thought I survived because of the trap I'd set beforehand. But that wasn't it. You pinned it down. You turned back to attack that monster. It glared at her as if to annihilate her. She stabbed its eye with an arrow, causing it to panic, then waited for an opening to use her dagger. And to think I assumed she'd be useless. I was wrong. He thought to himself, a beginner healer who isn't even rank F. I didn't even expect her to survive this ordeal. For the past week, the two of them had searched for all the boxes in the dungeon. The goal of the first trial was to attack everything and defeat all the bosses, to completely clear the dungeon. And to do that, I'll have to get all the item boxes in the dungeon. I've upgraded my skills and prepared for the boss fight. Of course, sometimes the dungeon boxes contain curses. The sharp fangs and claws of those monsters would tear me to shreds. I have to run. Godion-hee used a healing spell. It freed me from my terror. The fear was gone. He turns back to look at her. Whenever Godion-hee removes a curse, I can't help but think of the 12 evils. To be able to remove a curse, you first have to be able to cast one. Being next to someone who can enter my mind at any time makes me uncomfortable. The two of them walk on together. He looks ahead. A gate stands before them. This place is... That's right. The final room. Behind this door is the dungeon boss. A dungeon that requires at least 5 rank E hunters to clear. I can't believe the two of us made it this far alone. A rank F hunter, and someone who isn't even rank F. He thinks if we stick to the plan, this won't take long. We've survived this far. So let's not die here. Seoju said. She answered, I'm ready. Let's go. The door opened. Inside were countless beasts and a leader. He was sitting on a golden throne, his mouth agape with a pack of Anubis behind him, none of them two-headed. My first time here. Some guys actually laughed when they saw these hellhounds. What the hell is with this dungeon? This can't be the boss. It must be a bonus reward or something, but then they realized that the more people they killed, the stronger the Anubis became. By the time they figured it out, it was too late. He had turned into a demon, so when we went to face him, you have activated the Wrath of Odin. Target self. You have used the skill speed boost. You have activated armor. The key to the strategy was to avoid confronting the Anubis as much as possible. He used his strength to land the first kick, while that bastard of a leader watched him charge into battle. With his first kick, many of them fell. Damn it. We're not even halfway through, he thought. The leader gave a sinister smile. The ones below attacked him, and he counterattacked them all, just as I expected. I can't stop their maws with just this F-rank killer punch skill. The F-rank killer punch grants solid power to any selected body part. I have no other choice. I have to tear them to shreds. Warion-hee has activated the healing skill. The wound is healing. Warion-hee is using her recovery skill while having to conceal her presence with a secret item, even though it's just a crappy F-rank item. But it can still hide her presence from monsters blinded by bloodlust. Oh my god, he's so reckless. Warion-hee was going from one surprise to the next. It's like punching a wall with his bare hands. I have to step up and stop this monster before it can attack her. For now, she's still safe. 4 victories. That's the only way we can get out of here. With Warion-hee, the battle was incredibly tense. The skill, Man in Adversity, has been activated. Your physical strength has been improved. Your muscular strength has been improved. Your speed and senses have also been improved. Your wounds are being healed. The player's pain tolerance is temporarily reduced. Man in Adversity. Remaining duration is 5 minutes. With the points I earned from the dungeon, I raise my strength and agility to E rank. Now it's time to fight. Man in Adversity has raised your strength and agility to D rank. Nothing can stop you when this skill is active. Man in Adversity has 3 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. He blew them all away. Time remaining 1 minute and 12 seconds. The leader, enraged, attacked him. Seoju threw his dagger at the opponent. Caught by surprise, he couldn't counterattack immediately. Seoju seized the opportunity and charged forward. Man in Adversity, 14 seconds remaining. Time remaining only 4 seconds. He activated Hand of Mary. The opponent's attention was drawn to her. The boss turned back to attack her, but was counterattacked by Seoju. He caught her in his arms. Open your eyes. Please wake up. You have completed the requirements of the Crying and Smiling Mask. Please state your first and second wishes. Wishes? A wish. All right. I will state my first wish. She was slashed across an artery near the end of the fight. Now she's lost too much blood. He grit his teeth. I love you, so please wait for me. I don't even remember how I killed the rest of the monsters. When I got out of the dungeon, I looked like a complete wreck. He was able to survive thanks to receiving the recovery attribute from the second priority reward. It's an amazing attribute that maintains minimal life functions in the event of a fatal wound. However, the pain doesn't decrease, and the person with that attribute needs time to recover. What I received was Devi's Sword. It's a pretty good sword with an added effect on every strike. This is the first sword I've ever obtained. It can inflict deep wounds, and enemies afflicted by this wound will have difficulty moving normally. I was overwhelmed for a moment thinking that everything was going exactly according to my initial calculations. And the results from the financial empire were just as incredible. An important announcement was starting in Moscow right now. We have just received news of a declaration of a moratorium extending the suspension of monetary obligations for a certain period by exercising state power. This applies to an entire nation or a specific region, leading to a decline in international credit and causing serious economic disruption. People were shouting, Ryan, Ryan, New York Jonathan, and Kim Jong-so, Jinlan, Jinlan. The investors are ecstatic. Jillian and Jessica, the accounts that had a loss rate of minus 40%, have skyrocketed back up. It's like a miracle Sun calculated it all. A 450% profit. That's $90 billion in total. We did it. And on Jillian's side, 450% amazing, we won. It's incredible. I wish you were here to see this. Everything's going crazy, Ryan. Ryan. Congratulations, Jonathan. But that's not even the highest. Someone else's profit reached 615%. This is what I'll give to Gordon. When she wakes up. It's the new, fully fledged medical corporation. The dungeon has been destroyed, and now it can be used as a complete hospital. Here is the promised payment. 500 million for entering the dungeon. 500 million for surviving. 1 billion as regular income, for a total of 2 billion. No. Is all of this really mine? A tear fell down her cheek. He had participated in charity work on a very low income. It must have been very difficult for someone as sensitive as her. But from now on, with the pharmaceutical corporation, I can freely help more people. Have you changed your mind about entering the dungeons? Seonu asked, as she thought about that decision. I guess I'm going to need a lot of money, so please take care of me. From now on, Captain. Everyone turned to look. Wow, a very elegant woman had just walked in. Long time no see, Eden. It really has been a while. How's New York, Jessica? This is the investment proposal from the board of directors. A Russian project. It's up to you now. Gilan, my boss, thinks very highly of me. Aiden, I need to ask his opinion about this. Take your time, there's no rush. But why don't you try listening to me this time, Eden said, advising her to sell most of the main shares on the NASDAQ market in New York. Jessica was worried. But she'll accept it soon enough. $30 billion is worth the investment. A sudden decision without having to be responsible for the damages. I'm pretending to be lenient, but at the same time, I'm observing Gilan's every move. Something very interesting is about to happen. There's one more person, Jonathan, who is monitoring Lee Chung-so's actions. He's also doing his part well. I won't take up much of your time. We are developing a search engine technology. Now, I will briefly explain page rank. It's a technique used to evaluate the importance of a website. Right. It depends on the user's level of trust. I heard it was worth $1 million. $1 million, that's... Imagine our technology selling for $1 million. With that much money, we could pursue the PhD project or perfect it slowly, but the technology didn't sell. And those two were forced to run the growing company themselves. This is the best opportunity. It's not easy to cash out safely, even after an IPO. But if I buy this technology outright, those two will go back to their PhD program. An IPO, or initial public offering, refers to the first time a company issues stock and lists it on the stock market. Its purpose is to raise capital from investors. Jonathan pulls out the papers. All right, $1 million, but I have another offer. Jonathan was the only person who could resolve this dilemma. You're offering $10 million. Eden gulped. I'm sorry my partner isn't with me. Can I discuss this with them? I'm heading to Washington in an hour. Give me 10 minutes. I'll be right back. Time passed. Eden entered. Mr. Jonathan, for your kindness and your high appraisal of our technology, we are sincerely grateful, but, changed your mind. Then how about double that amount? Eden was speechless. Jonathan, the king of investors, is that interested in us? We've really made it. It's not that. We've already made our decision. Do you know why I am so successful? I read the book you wrote. It was truly impressive. Then you must know that I've bet my entire fortune twice. It wasn't gambling, nor was it based on luck. I seized the ultimate opportunity. My calculations were perfectly accurate. And today I see my third opportunity. Can you even imagine the price I'm willing to bet? Our current liquidity fund is over $500 billion, spread across the United States, Canada, and Japan. And that number is still growing. All right, let's get back to the point. If someone truly desires something, they will never reveal their true intentions. But that's not how I operate. He slid another check across the table. You really don't want to change your mind. What do you mean? From the beginning, your goal was simply to sell your technology. Until you met me. And now, do you really believe you can generate more profit than the price I'm offering? If that's truly the case, I won't stand in your way. Cancel my meeting with the Treasury Secretary. I have something urgent I need to handle immediately. An urgent matter. That's Jonathan for you. He sees this as a threat. A real threat. Yes, I'll do my best for your sake. So let me be clear. This isn't over. You'll have no other choice but to come back to me, Jonathan said. My God, I can't believe it. How could he? How could he go this far? Eden trembled as he picked up the checks. I will give this my most serious consideration. 50-50. However, our 50% must also come with executive rights. If you really want to get this technology, this is the least you have to do. Jonathan listened to him, a slight smile on his face. My apologies for earlier. They say destiny is in a name. When we two shake on it, it's the power of 10 to the 100th. Google always lives up to its name. I'm very eager to report this news to my partners. Yes, please everyone enjoy the celebration. I'll call back later. Jonathan laughed loudly, then he sighed. Applause rang out. Well done, Jonathan. You're a fast learner. Did you hear that, son? I was actually about to pull back that $20 million. I don't know if he thinks $20 million is too much for a newly established company, but attracting shareholders at too low a price is never a good thing. Jonathan shook his head. Anyway, are we really going to keep doing this for a bunch of computer nerds? But this is a company that will grow exponentially to $60 billion in 15 years. CONU glanced at me. I found the cat. There he is. John Black, a former mercenary who joined Wall Street with the expectation of meeting a big shot. I'd rather be shot dead on the battlefield. I expected that a person could make a lot of money. I'll be doing repetitive tasks. That's why... When I had grown tired of life as a private detective, a man named Ethan came to see me, a young man who smelled like those who have crossed the line between life and death. Nice to meet you. I'm Ethan. Obviously, this guy was connected to some big shot somewhere. I did my best to earn his trust, but we couldn't meet his request under my company's regulations. I'll propose an off-the-books service. The man smiled mysteriously. John Clark had succeeded in getting what he wanted, a connection to a big shot. A car drove down the street. A masked man like a thief. CONU observed from behind. She's in a detention camp, so she can't be found through normal means. He thought to himself the charge is first-degree murder. He was released for lack of evidence, but it was definitely him. Have you surrounded the building yet? Observer, if the cat escapes, shoot on sight. Understood. First-degree murder at the age of 13. The cat is in the main room. He's doing something. He must have been a psycho long before that. John, you're with me and T-Boy. We'll go in as a 3-man team. Remember, don't underestimate him just because he's young. If you think about the success bonus, you'll understand just how dangerous he is. The success bonus is $1 billion. Shit, he thought. $1 billion for a 13-year-old kid. I don't know what these rich guys are thinking. The cat is on the move. I hear water, so I think he's in the bathroom. They broke in and pressed against the wall. They've surrounded the door. He's in the bathroom at this hour. Will he even realize we're here? Suddenly, he flinched. The door opened. 2 men were decapitated, their heads sent flying. He stood there imposing in the doorway. Guns were fired. His eyes widened. He was immediately attacked. Focus, concentrate your fire. The person inside was shot. A shield that absorbs damage. He's blocking the bullets. He glanced up. What the hell is that? You have used Devi's sword. Those thieves were attacked. He's emitting an immense amount of power. You have used Odin's wrath. Item, survival knife used. Gag used. Target Bobby. A dagger plunged down. You have failed to bind him. He grabbed a weapon and slashed through the intruder. The 2 sides clashed. My punch went through. I broke the kid's shield. A massive kick. The intruders were stunned. A huge punch. He latched on to one of their bodies. The leader. A punch was thrown. His eyes rolled back. Overcomer of all difficulties. So we meet again. He attacked. No one could escape. One of them raised his gun. The bullets flew towards him. The gun smoked, but everyone was shocked. The bullets weren't flying towards him. Instantaneous teleportation. Range 20 meters. He's still nearby. Split up. 1 person to the roof. 1 to the basement. I'll check the street. Move it. He ground his teeth. So clever. When did he activate Overcomer of all difficulties? He felt a burning sensation. Even with his enhanced senses, he still couldn't detect him. And when the effect of Overcomer of all difficulties runs out, I'll lose consciousness. Even the veteran soldiers couldn't hide their anxiety and nervousness. He walked on. That was only natural, because what they witnessed yesterday was a completely different world of violence. Maybe I should watch what I say too. A man lay on a box, his mouth agape. A poison-related skill. If it could make me lose consciousness, then his guts must be completely corroded. Who is he? His name is Brown. When this is all over, I'll set up a 1-kilogram insurance policy for the staff. For now, let's focus on catching that bastard. We'll discuss what comes next later. How are we supposed to catch an old fox? Like that. Do we even have a chance of catching him? The longer we wait, the stronger he gets. If we miss this chance, not even a massive military force would be able to stand against him. Therefore, we must act before that becomes a reality. If an entire armed military force can't do anything to him, then this is no longer a joking matter. Understood. We have to find him no matter the cost. John Clark reported what Isaac did. The victim was a 28-year-old male he met online. He was released because they couldn't find the weapon. Due to a lack of evidence, and despite the fact that a letter he wrote the night before pleading his innocence was sent to the prosecutor in charge of this case. That cunning bastard. No wonder his growth rate is so high. He's definitely hunting these potential awakeners. Jonathan, how many shares of Gold Online do we own? I'm calling to ask. The messaging app they used is called Gold, a service of Gold Online, for the sake of investigating crimes related to gold. And as its major shareholder, we were able to access the room's server logs, and the ones with the most power are... Rank Fs are all welcome. Is that bastard approaching potential awakeners by naming his chat rooms like this? 4 assign people to monitor everyone on this list. Could they possibly be the VSINs? Perhaps. Just keep them under observation for now. There's a chance our target will try to approach them. And bring at least 1 team with you. We need to be thoroughly prepared. Any other questions about the mission? Seon-Hu asks. No, sir. However, the cost. You don't need to worry about any cost at all. He was stunned. A vault of money. I've prepared everything. With a reliable company secured, the matter in the U.S. was concluded. Seon-Hu sat on the plane reading a newspaper. World Asset Management Rankings 1998. Gross Profit End of January Part 2. The top investment fund is Jonathan's with $509 billion, and in 10th place is the Bluestone Group with $181 billion. He smiled. Number one, huh? Not bad. The pension fund has influenced politics all across America, the assets of many of the world's billionaires. All of it is concentrated in the corporations in New York, the banks that control the world economy from behind the scenes. OS, what a mysterious name. It won't be long now. How dare you talk back to me? Shut your mouth and bring me another one. Once we get to Korea, you're fired, understand? A man on the plane curses at the staff. So you take my money, but you're not grateful for it. These bastards. I'm sorry, sir. He turns back. What are you looking at? Do you think you're on my level just because you're also in business class? How ridiculous. Listen up, you punk. I'm from the Han Seal Group, he said, grabbing Seon-Hoo by the collar. He was trembling with rage, then he collapsed. To save Washin-hee. In a sensitive situation like this, I have to control myself and master the power of my anger. This skill is only meant to be a substitute for a pacemaker. Still, I guess using it like this is all right. I'm fine, he thinks. Washin-hee is cheerful. Seon-Hoo is here. Washin-hee decided to use the 1 point she got from clearing the last dungeon to exchange for 11 bronze tooth boxes. She waited for me so we could open them together, doing so because she didn't want to cause any misunderstandings. And she wanted to open the dungeon boxes with me and get some advice. She's so stubborn, he thought. What do you think I'll get? I'm so excited I got a recovery item, she yelled. Oh, you just got a recovery item? Is she really that happy about it? I guess everyone reacts differently when they open a box, he thought. Let's open the next one. Oh, this time it's an item Dagger of the Jester. What is this thing? Is it any good? She asked. Wait a minute. Could it be? Dagger of the Jester has a small 1% chance to inflict paralysis on an enemy with each attack. Rank F. It's basically one of the 3 unique weapons. It's a good item. Seon-Hoo replied, I wonder if it can be enhanced. To get this from a contract, this is a secret curse in the spirit world. The paralysis effect appears randomly, but if an enhancement fails, the item is destroyed. One of the 3 unique weapons. It's the only item that can be enhanced to S-rank, Seon-Hoo thought. He's the type of person who never stops until he achieves his goal. But I never thought he'd go this far. Inside the room was still lit. Ego, it's so difficult to get a meeting with you. Mr. Chairman, don't say that. Why are you calling me by that name? The land owned by the Genie Group now stretches all the way from Seoul to Busan. So if I don't call you Mr. Chairman, what else would I call you? He didn't say a word. Sir, are you all right? I'll drink this as an apology. Director Park, the CEO position is definitely not the right fit for you. After all, my entire fortune is in your hands. Right, Mr. Chairman. My eye for people is never wrong. In the board of directors meeting today, no one could stand up to you, Director Park. So I have a favor to ask. Could you transfer the Genie Group's shares in exchange for 10 billion won? How about 100 billion won? The chairman said that the equity capital would control the share value of the Han Seal Group. The Jahyun Group recently made an offer of 200 billion won. Director Park said, if it were my asset, then I would have the right to decide. I'm sorry, but I have to get back to work now. Director Park, this is a multi-billion won deal. Don't you want to make some money? I heard you perfectly. You should reconsider this offer. Hey, Director Park, Director Park. He gets into his car and lets out a sigh. I can't believe I just turned down 100 billion won. Damn, that felt good. I'm lucky to be part of the Genie Group. He flashes a sinister smile. Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm on my way back to the company. Sorry, the meeting has been postponed until tomorrow morning. Do you want to head over there yourself? I understand. I will see you at the company tomorrow morning. But just a few hours ago, he wanted me to come back immediately. I wonder what happened to the woman who turned down the Blue House's invitation for the meeting, he thought. In the high-rise building, only a few office lights remained on. A sword was placed on a display. There are so many knives and even a dartboard. The girl is terrified. Think of it as just a collection, she says, as if she were just making coffee. The foreign media has its eyes glued on Genie, so I called Jamie to ask about this. How are the group's investment activities coming along? She looks at him. I have some good news for you. We've acquired the majority of the circular shareholdings of the top 10 companies. Circular shareholdings in the midst of this national chaos. The corporations have created slush funds and reorganized their governance structures. For example, the equity structure would start from the Isung Group Isung Dreamland Isung Insurance and go to Isung Electronics, and from Isung Packaging it circles back to Isung Dreamland. This way, yes, just by holding shares in Isung Dreamland, the Isung Group can control the entire corporation's operations. It's similar with Jahyun Elevator and Hansel Confectionery. It plays a critical role in a chain-like management process. We call them circular shareholdings. This is great news for our investors. This country is about to belong to Genie. We've entered the middle of summer. History will change bit by bit. The natural disasters that are meant to happen will happen regardless. On the day the typhoon hit the Korean peninsula, not even the storm could cool the heat of the stock market. It's set to rise along with the tech boom in New York. The trend started when an investor put 40 billion won into Genie. After the financial war, Jahyun Securities quickly launched the Korea Fund Call Option product. And after that, the Korea Super Technology 21 policy was implemented. But right now, as the Bank of Korea's IMF loan comes due, it's time for me to make a decision. I want to finish high school normally. But that seems impossible, so I can't delay it any longer. I'll talk to them to reassure them. He thinks while watching the news in a temporary room. There are many companies watching us. So I have to time my entry into the market perfectly. Electronic dictionary stocks rose 147 times in 1 year. Smart technology rose 150 times in 6 months. SailGov rose 93 times in 40 days. Ilyak Telecom rose 17 times in 25 days. The fever on the trading floor of the Korea Stock Exchange is about to begin now and will go down in world history. Dad, I have something I want to show you. Hello, Mr. Na. We were very impressed with your research, particularly with your detailed report on the companies. Goodcom and app, as well as the overall outlook for the NASDAQ market. Are you familiar with the titans of Wall Street? The man known as an outstanding hedge fund manager was also an analyst from a young age. Although you are a young teenager in a faraway country, we would very much like to work with you directly. We are delighted to announce that you have been selected as an analyst for the Jonathan Financial Investment Group, and we look forward to receiving your response. Congratulations, Mr. Na. Jonathan Financial Investment Group. Isn't that the one you mentioned when you opened your stock account last year? That's right. I started studying back then. What word could possibly describe this other than genius? A third-year high school student's achievements far exceed his parents' expectations. What will Dad think? But I wonder what he's thinking. Why do I look like I'm about to die? I'm sorry. What do you mean? Why are you sorry? Why didn't I realize what a special child you are? Lift your head up, kid. You did nothing wrong. I'm just sad that I wasn't by your side during such an important moment in your life. That's all. But it's good that I know who you are now. The man laughs loudly. Ha ha ha, you're busy, aren't you? I won't bother you anymore. The father hugs his son. You're all grown up now. You don't have to worry about me anymore. By partnering with these big investors, you can do whatever you want. That's all I can say. I'm sorry, son. I should have supported you more, but I never thought that. I understand, Dad. This is more than enough. He's tearing up. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Dad. Taekwondo was my only hobby when I was a kid. If you remember back then, I was so excited to represent the country in a competition. He smiles sheepishly. Mom guesses you must have practiced hard for that. I hope you can achieve what you want. I'm so sorry. The mother sighs. I'm proud that you found your talent, my love. The mother said with a proud smile. Proud that you found your talent. I really mean it. I'll work hard so you don't have to worry about me anymore. My parents have prepared more than I thought. Wait, Ian. He turns to look at him. You two look so happy together. Hey, I swear I didn't use any skills. Anyone could see that. She turns back to look at him. It seems you're more relaxed now. He sighs. How is our search going? It's not that hard to find, Captain. A heavy downpour began. A few people walked through the forest wearing raincoats that covered their entire bodies. They moved through the dense jungle. The person behind them was surprised. The two of them stopped. In front of them was a light. What the hell is that? It wasn't open yesterday. Wuhan. Hai took off his hood and said, They're there. Why didn't I just grind away for 3 years at school? There are traces of false awakening everywhere. Not just here. How many are there? She asked. Just one right like us. It seems that person is also scouting. I never taught her to be wary of pre-awakened individuals. As expected, she has good instincts, Z thought to himself. He held his hand out in front of him. Because of the rain, it will be hard to follow the tracks. Let's just wait and see how things play out. A light flickered before them. Hypothermia will set in soon. It's better not to wear a raincoat. It helps keep the senses sharp, he thought to himself, his eyes filled with contemplation. She looked at the glowing object in front of her. It suddenly went out. Then it gradually faded away. Z moved towards it. A dungeon has appeared. Do you wish to open the dungeon? The dungeon has been resealed, which means the first person who entered yesterday is dead. He's dead. It seems so. What a relief. Good job. Z patted her on the shoulder. You were right to be careful. If you continue to be this cautious, I'll live a very long life. It's not entirely necessary since we both have escape seals, but you never know what kind of monsters are inside. We can't relax too soon. Weidian, he has joined the party. Let's go. You have entered the dungeon. Warning, you must fulfill the conditions before you can exit. Quest Dead Zone has been activated. Quest The Duke's Downfall has been activated. Quest Hibernation has been activated. He thought, a Duke centipedes. Does that scare you insects? Yeah, those. Weidian, he replied. Huh? What's so scary about them? I'm not afraid of insects. He said nothing more. He turned to see her trembling. What are you doing? Keep moving. On the rock above their heads, something like a thread protruded. The two of them froze. He immediately grabbed Wade and He to protect her. He drew his weapon. Weidian, he was terrified. A giant monster was in front of them. It's attacking directly the dungeon. Duke, watch out for the tentacles. They're poisonous. My God, this thing is huge. It's terrifying. Xi told her to get ready. We've run into the worst type of monster. Worst type? What do you mean? Well, among monsters, some of them act just like humans, because the antennae will render it helpless. Separate the head from the body by slashing at the joints to guard against the venom in its legs. A demon centipede lord has been defeated. Massacre of the demon centipede lords. The demon centipede lord killed over 130 of them. Are these centipedes that easy to kill? They should be stronger, you know. They just look that way. They still have brains. Don't think they're just mindless beasts, or you'll pay the price. But if they lose their antenna, they just become stupid. You should be careful with their venom glands. If you're bitten or stung, you'll suffer immense pain. Only skills and seals can neutralize the poison. Is that right? That's right. If you get a heavy dose, the pain will be excruciating. But don't worry, it'll heal after a few days. The post-mortem rigidity has almost completely disappeared. What are you doing? Z replied. For now, the corpse's condition isn't perfect, but I still have to process some of its byproducts. He lifts it and punches it hard. Weidian, he watched in fear. Okay, I got it. It's deep inside. He took a gem from its body. She asked, bewildered, what is that? A magic stone. It's useless for now, but soon it will be more expensive than gold. It's no coincidence that the first noble centipede died so easily. The will of Gaia has been activated. An enemy is watching you. Seismic wave has been activated. Everything is becoming obscured. The goddess's sword has been activated. The noble massacre. Nobles killed 3 out of 30. Nobles killed 7 out of 30. Nobles killed 12 out of 30. Those freaks with no antennae are rushing towards me. After I deal with the rest, I'll kill you all at once. I've taken down dozens of these noble centipedes, but I only received minor injuries from the continuous attacks, and it didn't affect me much. Xi thought, I see. As I get closer to E rank, my consciousness is slowly returning. A rank hunters have gained countless combat experiences through their own survival skills. Right now, I'm even stronger than the system's evaluation of me. Anyway, let's just end this quickly. Weidian. He looked confused. We don't need to wait a month. However, a few unexpected things happened. More than 100 noble centipedes attacked us. It's been 5 days since we were poisoned. By them. What in the world happened? There were so many of them, I couldn't even tell which way was up. Was I using Odin's wrath, the explosion from the Jester's dagger, or Man of Calamity first? Plus that attribute, a class that increases agility. Weidian. He activated courage. Z observed. He thought, I see. So that's why my memories of the fight are so jumbled. A battle of survival against a horde of this insane size. This really isn't like me at all. I didn't see this coming. He looks ahead, then closes his eyes. Weidion. He is groaning. Are you okay? Z asks. Weidion. He holds her head. What happened? We were surrounded by over 100 centipedes. Thanks to that, I've completed all missions except for the boss. After we held out together until the end, we started distributing the rewards. Weidion, he received 2 skills, Animosity and Muddled. These skills make it harder for enemies to detect her. She's getting more and more cunning skills. But Weidion, he still needs to move stealthily. Among the things I received, there was a very prominent attribute called Innate Talent. As soon as my existing attributes are activated, there's a small chance it will enhance the quality of the attribute. Depending on the level, F rank Numb. The duration is 5 minutes and the cooldown is 7 days. No way. Does this mean I can turn the S rank Man of Calamity skill into... We collected the remaining boxes in the dungeon and prepared for the boss. I also put aside my worries about Go Ji Hyun. He thought to himself, we need to recover first. To enter high-level dungeons, having a healer is a must. Weidion, he suddenly looked ahead as they walked in together. Those are just pillars, right? He replied, these are the seals of mid-sized nobles. The noble centipede bosses are inside these. The body isn't too dangerous if we can break this shell. Dealing with each mid-sized noble isn't too hard. Mid-sized, she thought. Z raised his fist and punched straight ahead. She froze. Weidion, he has activated a healing skill. This thing is really sturdy. This time, I'll have to use Man of Calamity to test out the new abilities I got, he said as Weidion. His eyes were still wide. Weidion, he thought helplessly. Oh God, he's going to do it again. The secret of Javi's knife has been revealed as its proficiency level rose to one who overcomes all hardships. A cheat skill that is one of a kind, but not the only one. Javi's knife releases sharp energy. You can transform it into Shiva's knife E rank. Rejection time 5 minutes. Shiva, the god of creation, the main skill of the 7 great evils. Shiva's knife. So that's why the wicked fear a good person possessing this skill. It has the ability to transform into another skill named after a god. You can only call this a cheat skill. Get back, Z said. Shiva's knife will be used. A blinding light flashed, and everything felt like it was about to collapse. Shiva's knife has a long attack range and uses fire energy. With this, I can roast the centipedes hiding deep inside their shells. The centipedes emerged rushing to attack. Their power is immense. I'll just use Odin's sight. The centipede lets out a ferocious scream. Z and Go Ji Hyun had to cover their ears. Did they show up because of the screams, "It's too late"? They charged at Z. It suddenly froze. Random halt effect. Perfect timing. He punches it directly. Whoa, Weidion. He collapses, holding her head. The centipedes are twitching too. It's over. Weidion. He looked up at Z. This thing. Her senses have gotten sharper. She probably sensed it. Something must have gotten mixed in with the drawing. He thinks seeing her on the verge of tears. Only the boss of this dungeon is left. I thought I told you you'd see scarier things than this. Get used to it. You have met the conditions to complete the final area mission. Please agree and decide the positions for the first and second candidates. The first person is definitely me. However, Woo Do-hee also received the reward for becoming an awakened. She got the next highest rank for killing the dungeon boss. The reward from this challenge box is Aegis's Gaze, the skill of the first villain of this era. The second villain used a skill that everyone, including myself, wanted to avoid: psychological control and manipulation. Now Woo Do-hee has that skill. So there's only one thing I can do to maintain a state of mind that could be controlled at any moment. The scene shifts elsewhere. Woo Do-hee's senses have risen to E rank. Physical strength, muscular power. Enhanced senses are not easy to adapt to. Light stabs into my eyes. A deep breath sounds like a scream. Even the faintest scents smell like a sewer drain. I put the food in the fridge, by the way. Don't open the curtains or turn on any lights. Woo Do-hee asks, "Do you have to go?" He replies, "Me not being here will help you more. Call me when you're okay." She sobs, "Stay with me, please." Endure it. Woo Do-hee, you're going to become an extraordinary being. At USA, Arizona, a group of people look up at a guy stretching. What are they all doing? Quiet, someone says. From now on, you all must return any items that can be used for identification. He looks just like a robot. He has a completely different aura from the special forces. A man thinks, I know people like him. Everyone who works at Langley is like that. People who are just treading water. Langley. You mean the CIA, a new headquarters expected to follow in the footsteps of HQ2. He listens while returning his item. There are only 2 things I want you all to do. Report. And keep secrets. If you can't follow these instructions, then go home right now. We'll cover your transportation costs. So what do we have to do? He uses a spray to catch a cat. A car moves down the road. It still hasn't stopped. There are a few people inside. A guy with glasses thinks, how much longer do we have to wait? Should I make a run for it? I know. Don't lose focus, someone says. See that truck over there? If anything happens, your mission is to take care of it. They look across the street. Damn it. I don't think this is related to any criminal organization. The agency that initiated this operation seems pretty sharp. Let's see what this is all about. They look bewildered. Where did that laser come from? The guy with glasses observes. Stay still. Okay. They're stunned. A man with his face completely covered appears behind them. With a knife in hand, he immediately cuts them down. A terrified man starts to cry, "Spare me, please." The guy with glasses tries to find a way to escape. Damn it, this bastard. He's smiling. He's enjoying this. He's already killed several people. The blood-dripping knife points toward the man with glasses. He stares intently. The masked man also uses a spray. What a shame. What? The masked man gives a sinister smile as he starts to vanish. The attacks rush towards the man with glasses whose limbs are trembling. He's still alive within a 100-meter radius. Clean it up. A plane lands. The man with glasses walks down the street. I can't believe such a terrifying monster actually exists in this world. And yet, he's still not the most terrifying monster out there. He keeps on walking. He's a cat here to hunt another cat. You're here. I'm Mick. He bows his head. Don't worry too much. Mike is terrified, sweating bullets. You have no way of catching that cat. The other person says. A car speeds over. Cars are zipping down the road. The 2 of them are in a car. I heard about what you went through. Your teammates. They're all gone. Everyone back then was prepared for the worst. But the driver was something else entirely. Have you ever doubted anything about this line of work? After what? We don't work for the government, but we know the value of what we're doing. Mick feels helpless. Thanks for your concern. The high-performance car continues to move. They stop. He answers his phone. Good. Continue as planned. Who's that Asian guy? Did he buy this entire area? You've got to be kidding me. After finishing the call, he turns back. From now on, this belongs to us. Block the entrance and prepare for a 2-week incursion. Everyone move out. They get past some large rocks, then take a break. What's he planning to do? It's not like he wants to do survival training. Is this some weird hobby of the rich? It's nice and cool up here. Anyone up for a few rounds of cards? Mike said not to get too comfortable. We're not here to camp, you 2. The 2 people next to him were confused. On the 3rd day at 1923, thunder rumbled as he watched a light appear in front of them. Damn it, it's that light again. This time I won't let you get away. Mick aimed his gun and turned back. Stop it. All of you protect this place. Don't let anyone get near. Mick seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. Wait here until I get back. For how long? I'll be back in 1 week no matter what. He walked into the light. There was someone standing guard by the light. He was suddenly startled by a noise. Mike, I hear something strange coming from over there. They got into a ready stance on high alert, preparing to fire. They aimed their guns toward the light. Someone emerged. They were shocked. Wait, don't shoot, Mike said. Hold your fire. The dungeon has been destroyed. I've dispatched Mike and the agents to point number 2. I also overcame the pain after activating He Who Overcomes Adversity. Without a war zone, recovery is pretty tough. Still, I couldn't help but laugh. I can't believe I cleared a dungeon all by myself. Vajrapani's protective gauntlets were a huge help. I wasn't affected by the boss monster's magic at all. It absorbed an unbelievable amount of damage, but the deception ring shattered. In its place, I received the Shadow Ring. I've been using it for its hidden skill. Sun Wu observed that my senses had become sharper and I would soon reach D rank, which was a huge achievement in itself. Mike asked, "Sir, did you call for me?" "You," he replied. "Please have a seat. I'm appointing you as an investigator, Mike." "What? So John Clark hasn't told you yet?" "I have the full authority to do so." Mike froze. "What am I supposed to do?" "I want you to report on all of John Clark's actions, as well as those of the other investigators. I'm not asking you to be suspicious of them. This is just something I need to do. It's simply because the organization is growing stronger. In the future, this organization will become an association that manages all Awakened. This needs to be maintained consistently so we can grow into a large-scale organization." The car cruised down the road. Joltak's camouflaged facility was set up in an abandoned residential area near Manhattan, which is when I introduced Mike. He seemed a little uncomfortable, but now we're like family. He accepted his new guide. He opened the door, and Mick took in the sight before him. "We have cameras in all the areas he's been." "I'm guessing it's here." Sun Wu spoke. The guide replied, "That's right. We have agents watching the streets, and we've already spoken with the police chief in each district. We should be able to track him down soon." 6 months have passed. He's been on the run and has probably used up all his items by now. Good. This time he won't be able to teleport or control space anymore. Now what about Joshua? We have a live-in bodyguard who's infiltrated the mansion. I'll show you the video my agent sent over recently. He just focuses on his work. Nothing out of the ordinary. The true nature of a Type 2, Joshua von Carrion. I've ordered my agent to monitor his movements. But not much has happened since the resounding success of his recent career. Carrion is set to take over his family clan. A revolution. The strongest armed organization will be born. Stop here. The car stopped. He got out of the car. The organization will keep expanding. That's why your role is so important. Mike got out of the car. Sun Wu looked back at him and said something, then drove off. He walked into Jonah Invest, Jonathan's investment fund. Mike was sweating bullets. I shouldn't overthink this. Just focusing on the task at hand is hard enough. He thought to himself as the door closed behind him. A hand was placed on the table. Sun Wu looked surprised. "When you decide to retire, make sure you let me know." "Got it. You still haven't checked your email, have you?" "Our network has grown by over 200%. It's now worth about $300 million. "No way. This crazy market is full of nothing but crazy stocks. It's because I'm a member of a new conglomerate. If you combine Jillian's corporation and Jessica's fund, it would be worth at least $500 billion. For a financier who's returned from the future, an achievement like this in just 2 years isn't half bad. After all, I'm the one who provoked them in the first place." He took the letter the other man offered. September 15th. 1 month from now, they'll call for a hearing. It's a critical warning from the White House. If we don't follow their directive, it means our corporation will be buried under countless tax investigations. He asked, "Since when?" "It's been going on for a while." "What do they want?" Jonathan was silent for a moment. Then he looked up at Sun Wu. "Son, they want you." "No way in hell. They're really going to let some Asian kid ruin the world they built. They're setting a trap to expose all of my information to the media and play me for a fool." Sun Wu thought, "Actually, their reaction is slower than I expected, but we can't let my information get out." "Jonathan, I know." "Son, how much money did those people even spend?" "But it's inevitable that the people above will find out, but I still have to avoid my identity being exposed to the public. The first reason is my parents. If my identity comes to light, they'd be forced to live in a strictly guarded prison. Not only that, their every move would be monitored by society, and my own training to increase my stats would also be restricted. Or we could take an advance on the state's investment and create pressure by spreading hatred for the White House to the investment fund committee," Jonathan suggested. "Just think of the money we'd make from the investment. They'd go crazy for it, you'll see." "No, that's not enough," Sion Hu said. "Quickly arrange a meeting with the current president of Russia and the prime minister of Japan. I will discuss it with them directly." Discussing a public investment fund with Russia and Japan. Jonathan was surprised. "No, I'm going to drain the U.S. Treasury dry. With those two countries, we'll dismantle every explosive the U.S. has planted around the world. Jonathan was stunned. Getting involved in this, it won't have a good ending. We'll buy Japanese government bonds in Russia and Russian government bonds in Japan. If we use the excuse of a mutual exchange for U.S. bonds, they won't have any other choice. The U.S., Russia, Japan, is this guy trying to start a world war? Jonathan was sweating bullets. No, he was helpless. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have created this situation. No, I predicted this. Sooner or later, this was bound to happen. How much money do you have in mind? Right now, it'd be all the money in the New York area. If they refuse to concede, I'll pull all the capital from the Isle of Man and London. So right now, we need $300 billion. $300 billion. That's the U.S. defense budget for an entire year. Even if London and the Isle of Man cooperate, the worst-case scenario will happen. Something even more terrifying than a war. Jonathan, try calling the White House one last time. Tell them about our ambitions. Tell them how serious the situation has become. Yes, I'll do it myself. This is our last chance, the final moment to prevent a great war. I'll go with them. They were ready. Let's show them what we've got. At the White House, the two of them walked inside. You stay here until you see my signal, Seon-Hu said. But I'm pissed off too. Fine, I won't get involved in this, Jonathan said. The door opened. Inside, someone was already seated. The U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, S. Seon-Hu, thought to himself, I wanted to meet the president if possible, but this is fine too. The secretary and the president work together, so they can be considered one. Mr. S., I'm about to bankrupt LTCM, so you should consider this carefully. Is he holding back because he sees how young I am? S. said, if you continue to act as ignorantly as you just did, although I have no right to stop you, isn't LTCM important to you as well? LTCM, the hedge fund that slipped through America's fingers after the Russian financial market war. Although LTCM is on the verge of bankruptcy, it has also caused a massive shock to the U.S. economy. It fell into the hands of the New York Society after I took it over. LTCM stands for Long-Term Capital Management. You all owe us. Now, how do you plan to repay that debt? Seon-Hu asked. A debt? Is there some debt I'm not aware of? If you hadn't taken over LTCM, do you know how great the risk you all would have faced would have been? We only just took over LTCM. We had to take on a real hot potato. We were the ones who prevented the second Great Depression you mentioned. That thing also helped you make a fortune, didn't it? Jonathan, why are you just standing there? I just know Seon-Hu is angry. The public hearing of the you dare show that kind of attitude over just that S asked. Seon-Hu looks young, but he's still my boss, Mr. S. This isn't an issue I can get involved in. Have you heard anything from the donors? The reason why the Korean conglomerates and banks haven't made a move yet. If you want to play games with me, that's your choice. But remember this from now on, anything that happens is your own damn fault. Let's go, Jonathan. I'm living in a world where death sentences are handed out with laughter. When it comes to the economy, the amount of embezzled money can reach astronomical figures. I've never seen anyone with such an insolent attitude. What does a little brat like you know? The two of them turned back. And what do you know? Letting the situation get this serious. You know what? If I were you, I wouldn't dare raise my voice to question me. It's a dog-eat-dog world. The first one to lose its temper is the one that loses. He was furious. What the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about the financial bottleneck in Japan. Some little punks should know when to stop before things go too far. If he dares to block the bonds, he might even dare to target the yen. You don't know if Japan will even cooperate with you next time. Because of what you big shots did in the early 90s, I had to struggle through the recession. Some of you still think Russia is in a Cold War. What do you think of that? S grew even more furious. I never thought anyone would declare war on the White House. Even the Chinese ambassador wouldn't dare do that. Have you never considered that you could lose everything by doing this? Nonsense. Do you know how much Jonathan and I have invested in this plan? I'm confident I can win. But even if I lose, I can still earn that money back. S stood up furiously. He lunged towards them. The two stood face to face. You said this friend was 15 years old. Jonathan sighed. Yes, Mr. Secretary. I underestimated her at first, too. And I was proven wrong every single time. Your joke has gone too far. But I will still make a separate statement to the media. Don't forget, this was just a small, unintentional mistake. Also, You can go resolve the misunderstanding with the investment fund committee yourselves." The door slammed shut as S left. Ed said, "Don't forget that." It was just a small incident that happened downstairs. After that, he slammed the door shut. The two of them looked up at Jonathan, who finally relaxed, trembling. As the car sped down the road, the man said, "Not even the Chinese ambassador could do that." "Ha ha ha." Seonu remained calm. "There's nothing funny about it. I heard the Treasury Department in the White House has already waved the white flag. An S-rank monster boss. It surrendered beforehand because that's basically what it's called. There's nothing for me to be afraid of. I just need to make sure we don't do anything to upset them and start a war. Since the beginning day, human civilization has declined in 3 stages. The first stage was the nonsense from governments and capitalists around the world. Stage 2 was self-destruction with nuclear bombs. Stage 3 was a civil war between 8 powers. If the first stage had been handled well, the later problems wouldn't have occurred, because those who stepped out of the gates early could be killed by handheld guns. Since the economy had collapsed, the world was in a state of chaotic panic and nuclear weapons were used. And by the second or third time I returned to that day, the foundation of human life won't collapse. That's the future I want. That's why I need to earn and save a lot of money. Understood. Just continue with the plan. Jonathan said over the phone, "Son, I think it's starting. The online strategy has failed." Initially, the peak of the dot-com boom was in March 2000, when the NASDAQ index surpassed the 5,000-point mark. And by February 15, 2002, it was below 1,000. 80% had vanished. How high was the index yesterday? 5,239. How far will it fall? That's a bigger number than I thought. As predicted, the change will happen little by little. I believe it will drop below 1,000, the subprime situation of 2008. That was in the middle of the Great Recession, which started with the Asian financial crisis, along with the attack on South Korea, the dot-com bubble. So, what happened after that? Russia suffered from the global financial crisis, interest rates dropped a lot of money, was lost. And what about the rosy illusions of the new millennium? Everything combined, and the dot-com bubble burst. But I'm not talking about that. Jonathan looked bewildered. We will continue to lower the standard interest rate at the Fed to bring down stock prices, followed by a market shock. I guess we'll do that, but to what extent? From here until 2001, we'll watch as the interest rate drops below 1%, and we'll keep watching until we can manipulate it. After 2008, if we do that, it will be real estate. Real estate will naturally rise, but a toxic problem will be created there. Between 2007 and 2009, the biggest bomb will detonate, an explosion beyond the wildest imagination. Jonathan froze. What if that's just a preliminary hypothesis? Seonu looked up. The world economy, the financial system will be paralyzed. South Korea's IMF crisis, the dot-com legend and its collapse, terrorism war. The age of oil and gas and the real estate myth. A subprime mortgage crisis at the final stage of its disaster. The law of cause and effect in a unified world economy. There will be no good outcome. It's not a win-win situation. I have to calculate how the shock from Hong Kong will escalate in Russia's games and financial war, so we must always be vigilant. You call this foresight? I'll send you a short manuscript when I get back to Seoul. Night fell. The computer was turned on. He sat in front of the screen, thinking. I said I'd send it to him as soon as possible, but the reasons for knowing this are hard to explain, and I have nothing to prove it with data. The 9/11 terrorist attacks and the Iraq War. If I can just handle 1/2000th of it, then there won't be any problems with tax audits or anything like that. The terrorist attack in September 2001 will become an anti-American uprising, just like the beginning day. No, it's more serious than that. A brutal attack that destroyed the symbol of the world economy in one fell swoop. He thought about it helplessly. I understand why now. Low-level monsters came through on the beginning day. If the 7 demon kings arrive, they'll annihilate humanity at any moment. I can't let history repeat itself, so I have to write a manuscript that can convince the 3 geniuses. That's right. Let's start with the U.S. presidential election this September. A second president born into a wealthy family in the oil and gas business linked to the situation and the war. The Gulf War that his father started. I'll use this to create a chain. First, predict the results of Super Tuesday in February. Second, predict the outcome of the election. The U.S. presidential election in September, according to Manuscript 1. Third, an opinion on the issues that will arise after he takes office. Fourth, Iraq's oil reserves and the impact on the oil market. And fifth, the conclusion. Boss, have you received the manuscript? You're still calling me boss. Once a boss, always a boss. Anyway, this long-term manuscript, I think I'm going to suffocate. This is enough. This isn't something we should discuss over the phone. We need to meet and talk. We don't have much time. I'm leaving right now. Stay there and wait for me. She rushed out, then suddenly stopped, startled. She turned this way and that, checking her reflection in a mirror. Afterwards, as the car sped down the road, I thought it was a story straight out of a novel. Could it be possible? Who could have predicted that Russia would collapse like that? This case can't be compared to Russia's bankruptcy. But I didn't call you because of that. She thought, I knew he wasn't sleeping, so that's what it was. This guy said, as long as it's based on this manuscript. Investments equivalent to the corporation's net assets are not our responsibility. I don't like that. Excuse me, Jesse. Just relying on the genius's manuscript once is enough. So she looked at him. Where is it, Silverman? Mocha. Last hill. Jessica placed her hand on his forehead. Boss, don't you think you were mistaken? It's just that we only supply the ingredients. We decide what we want to cook. We're the ones who prepare it. She whispered in his ear. We're not farmers or fishermen. Those are different fields. There is no reason or need for us to fall for this genius's plan. They're amazing, but they're a team of specialists. We, however, fight alone. Jesse, in our field, we are the best. Stay still. It's been a while since I've held you. But we should talk professionally. Aren't we a man and a woman? He blushed as she kept holding him. The two had a passionate night. He stood at the door, looking around. The Republican National Convention and the future mistress of the President of the United States. An analysis of the current Texas government's behavior. The global situation between the U.S. economy and an analysis of the Fed's interest rate policy. Observations from an expert on the American real estate market. Investment outlook scenarios from major banks after the interest rate cut. The direction of the 4 world oil markets. An incisive analysis of macroeconomic trends. That's right. This isn't something one person can see. There must be at least 100 people. He thought to himself, feeling a sense of defeat compared to such an elite group. My guess is their command center is still active at this moment. It's raining outside. Where could I find it? It was drizzling outside. Seonu looked up as a person holding an umbrella approached. He shielded him from the rain. I was told to bring you to the chairman. He also thanks you for your understanding. The car moved, taking them to their destination. Entering the underground parking garage, he opened the door and got out. He bowed his head as a woman walked past. Has the government's surveillance gotten tighter? Seonu asked. The government's eavesdropping and tailing activities have lessened. We'll be able to resolve this issue soon. She handed him a file. Look at this first. The asset report for Gelnu Investment Firm. Among the 902 stocks on the Kospi, over 230 belong to the largest and most powerful shareholders. Kospi is South Korea's stock market index. It's obvious the government would be keeping tabs. While South Korea is still affected by the unreasonable demands of the IMFA corporation, like Gelnu accounts for 25% of the Korean economy. If a foreign corporation like Gelnu only focuses on making money and then pulls out, it will cause a massive shock. But that won't happen. I hear that Director Park Jung-sik is called the head of finance. Let me explain. No, just support him. He's not just the head of finance. He's the king of finance. Jamie is the CEO. No need for change, but I hope you can do more to maintain the corporation's image. Have you forgotten why we hired Jamie? Whether it's news documents, media, or entertainment flyers, we need to make sure the public doesn't see us as outsiders. Jamie is doing a good job, but he wants to do even more. I plan to hit the dungeons around the world in about 6 months. His father burst out laughing. If you go to America, where do you plan to stay? Yes, I already have an apartment near the company. Wow, so that means Manhattan. You're doing pretty well for yourself, kid. Doing even better than your old man, huh? He suddenly stopped. Should we have a drink? Come on, a son needs to learn how to drink from his father. He thought to himself, this reminds me of when I was a failure on Wall Street drinking with Dad. Even now, Dad is still worried about me. Life is like climbing a mountain. Dad always liked this saying. His father continued, if the mountain is too high, you rest and then continue climbing. If you fall, you rest and try to climb again. It's not like there's only one mountain, so you can climb forever. Just being on Wall Street is already an amazing thing. If it gets too hard, don't torture yourself. Just come home." His parents smiled and said, "Your mother and I will always be waiting for you." He held a newspaper in his hand, the world's billionaire rankings for December 1999, unit US dollars. Both the names and nationalities were revealed. It's a good thing Ed didn't do anything stupid, he thought. Sean-U looked up, startled. "You're here." One man with a gun was preparing to attack, while another was cleaning his. Warzone High was sweating. "I told you so." She gave an awkward laugh. "You did, but what's wrong with these guys? They're all afraid of you. If you weren't sober, he'd be scared too. It's more like awe, to be precise. We teamed up once. She's changed ever since her skills got stronger." He thought to himself. In a cold place full of ice and snow, they moved together. They stopped. "Like you said, take this. It's yours," Xianu said. Warzone High held the sword in her hand. She took it out and swung it for a test. Everyone was startled. "Those slashes were powerful. It's worse than what I got in the dungeon, but it's easier to use." Surprising. Even without using skills, none of these guys could beat the current Warzone He. "I'm sure you can take care of yourself, right?" "How long do you plan to be gone?" Mick asked. Sun-U looked over and smiled. "We'll be back in 5 days." On Warzone. He waved to everyone. The Eliminate Shipper quest has appeared. A whipping quest has appeared, so this time it's eliminating shippers. These variables, he thought. Sun-U turned back to look at Warzone He. Those aren't just some bugs. Warzone He looked at him blankly. She then laughed. "Our goal is to finish this. In 5 days, and I won't use Conqueror of Adversity. Is that even possible? Because I have you." Warzone. He said, "I have a lot of accumulated points. Wouldn't it be better to open a few more chests? We need to get used to our upgraded skills. We have to practice with them." "There they are," they said, looking ahead. "They look so smooth." They really are. Are they actually monsters? They don't look dangerous at all. Warzone, he thought. They stared at her. They were about to attack. Warzone. He closed her eyes, thinking, that's right. Now I get it. All right, then, let's start the test. Wei Dian-He used the eyes of Edis. A monster charged at her, and she summoned her power. The creatures were bound as if tied down. Still struggling fiercely, they were thrown backward. She defeated a third of the enemies in an instant. As expected, it's a truly impressive skill. More beasts charged in only to be met with the same attack as before. She was fiercely determined. Every last one of them was struck down. She annihilated them all. That's enough. You're pushing yourself too hard. Wei Dian-He collapsed. Seoju watched her, but Wei Dian-He's eyes were still glowing. Complete. Wei Dian-He's gaze was filled with killing intent, as if the desire to control Shiphoset had completely consumed her. I knew it. She needs training. The first time she used the eyes of Aegis, standing on the border between illusion and reality, a place where one's mind shatters. That feeling of helplessness, the moment my own consciousness was slowly being encroached upon by hers, Wei Dian-He. Are you all right? Hell. She dove deep into a part of her own being and was cast out by the 7 demon lords. Even if she truly is a member of the supernatural world and makes a living that way, she must have experienced an unimaginable terror. This is a skill that requires a great deal of training. This is to prevent her from being influenced or taken over by her targets. But this place, it's too easy. If she remains at this level in a mere testing ground, she could die. She won't get another chance to develop this skill. The second demon who is famous for the eyes of Aegis. As I thought, it's because she's a pre-awakened. Seoju thought to himself, staring intently at her. He drew his weapon. Blood splattered. The monster's eyes widened as it was slashed to death before him. Normal difficulty. Mission complete. You have received 1,500 points. You have received a gold chest as a first completion reward. Estimated time to complete without using Conqueror of Adversity was 5 days, but we finished it in just 3 days. If it weren't for the dungeon chests and skill cooldowns, it might have been even shorter. I thought Wei Dian-He's recovery rate was beyond anything I could have imagined. After that incident, where she sensed the 7 demon lords, it seems she's finally regained her mental fortitude. I can see her mental strength growing by the day. Weidian He is fighting against the 7 demon lords for my sake. I need to surpass even her incredible growth. Her growth is astonishing. The two of us are in the process of monopolizing dungeons. I remember the locations of the Ifrank dungeons. In the past, I never bothered with them. If we can secure all of them, we'll have a completely different starting point in the next testing zone. Let's clear the next dungeon in a single day. All right, she's confident. We'll begin our monopolization.